Okay. Hi, everyone. We are just waiting for. Oh. Hi, everybody. I just want to let everyone know that we are just waiting for our chair. We should get started in a few minutes. Thank you. Hello. Yes.
Morning. Morning. Morning for all.
All right. So we do have a quorum, and we're ready to begin whenever you are ready to begin.
Oh, it's right there. Sorry, let me look at it.
Whenever you're ready. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Absolutely, I'm ready.
Gavel it away. Good evening. This is the Community Advisory Committee meeting for July 15th, 6 p.m. here in the Lake Merritt Room in Cal State East Bay, the Oakland Center. Can we do a roll call?
Yes, thank you very much. Member Landry.
Present.
Member Hugh. Member Balkasoon.
Present.
Member Weiner. Member Stevenson.
Present.
Member Swaminathan.
Present.
Member Lakshman.
I'm here.
Member Pacheco. Member Carr. Member Harper.
Present.
Thank you. Member Lutz.
Present.
Vice Chair Souza. And Chair Hernandez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
And thank you very much. And for the next item of business is our public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any Ava community energy related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the committee are customarily limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must complete an electronic speaker slip. Blah, blah, blah. The committee chair may increase or decrease time allotted to each speaker. And with that, Adrian, how many speakers do we have?
We have one member with hand raised, or two members with hand raised. Brendan Pittman.
We'll go with the 3 minutes.
Go for public comment.
Hello. Hello, my name is Brendan Pittman from Berkeley, California. Just 2 items for me tonight. I'm curious when the item regarding the carbon-free allocation for nuclear energy will be considered by the board of directors. I see that it's not on the agenda for this Thursday. I imagine it's not a time sensitive. I'm just curious when it's going to show up again because it was postponed from the May meeting, I believe. So just curious on that, if we can get some communication or some outreach, social media, that'd be helpful. And then the second item is just a general announcement to everybody who's interested. This is more of an energy related matter and also kind of on the nuclear energy vein. But PG&E released a communication on Instagram and LinkedIn and I imagine various other social media platforms about their current outreach to community organizations about the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. I'm not affiliated with PG&E. I just follow the energy space. I think it's a beautiful plant. But the announcement is important for those wishing to understand more about the plant without having to go there. Something that I think members of this committee, advisory committee, the board of directors, the public, and I think just general elected officials have requested in the past. They've expressed, we don't know enough about the plant, and then the board is usually like, we don't know, we're not experts on this, so we can't comment on it. So just an announcement on that. I'm going to read it in full. It's a short announcement, just to avoid bias. But their announcement read, and video was shown that said, "We love to share the Diablo Canyon Power Plant with our community, and now we are bringing the plant to you. So far this year, we have talked to over 900 community members at Rotary and other service clubs, Chamber of Commerce, and a whole host of other organizations. We cover a variety of topics related to Diablo Canyon and open it up for questions." The message is then repeated in Spanish. If you'd like to schedule a presentation for your community group, reach out to us by emailing diablocanyonOutreach@pge.com or click the link in the various social media. Again, this is PG&E representatives coming to local community all around the state, so you don't actually have to go to the plant. I think this is a good opportunity to learn from those experts about that plant. If you're interested, again, not necessarily saying this board or you guys should do that. I'm just making the announcement that it's out there if people are curious. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comment. I've been to the plant. It's rather intense facility when I was on the board. So thank you for sharing that. And I don't necessarily know when we're going to hear the item. I don't know if staff knows if it's going to happen in August or a later date. Do we know when we're going to have the item discussed?
I think in September.
September? Okay, thank you. All right. Go ahead.
Saw that Alex Giorgio had his hand
Oh, okay.
raised.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yes, I was just going to confirm that we anticipate that item will appear on our September board agenda, since there's a board recess in August.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Alex. Appreciate it. Other public speaker in the room?
Yes. With a hand raised.
Oh, is a hand raised? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
I pause. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Community Advisory Committee. My name is Ayla Peters-Bass, and I work with the Local Clean Energy Alliance. I recall during the May CAC meeting, there were several CAC members who expressed interest in learning more about resilience hubs and their role in climate and energy resilience in their communities. I'd also heard from a few places that the CAC had been considering a study session of their own to learn more about resilience hubs. I first want to recognize and thank the CAC for their demonstrated interest in issues around community resilience and in recognizing these resilience hubs as leaders in their community. I also wanted to extend a formal invitation on behalf of Local Clean Energy Alliance to the CAC to have a study session together. Local Clean Energy has many strong and long-lasting relationships with resilience hubs in Ava Community Energy Territory. A lot of resilience hubs in both Alameda County and San Joaquin counties are really excited at any opportunity to speak on their expertise, on their roles in climate resilience, energy resilience, their day-to-day programming that addresses issues in both, as well as disaster, in moments of disaster. And we would be very excited to bring together CAC members and resilience hubs to the same table to have conversations around resilience work. Local Clean Energy would be happy to organize and facilitate a study session for the CAC. If this is of interest or if you want to speak more, please feel free to email me at my first name, AYLA, at localcleanenergy.org. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There are no further hands raised this time.
Thank you, and thank you. I will follow up with you, and I think we'll have other CAC members of interest to do the study session in collaboration and see how if AVA, through the staff and direction of the board, is interested in facilitating a partnership further with that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah, I try to be more, I'm a little less structured in these advisory committee meetings, not as much as the board. With that, we'll look at item number 3. Is the approval of the minutes from June 10th, 2024. Do we have any comments, adjustments, corrections, or other items? I think, Adrian, you sent out a message about a change or item. Was there something there or no?
To the prior minutes.
The prior minutes.
Yes.
Do we have to make a motion for that, or is it all good?
You can just approve.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, do we need to make an approval for that, or no? Okay, great. So with that, any corrections, adjustments to the minutes from June 10th? See no hands raised, I'll take a motion. Member Weiner, right? Yes,
I move approval.
Member Weiner will take it first.
Member Landry will second.
Member Landry will second. Any other comments, concerns? Roll call vote, I think.
Thank you very much. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Buckerson,
Yes.
Member Weiner. Yes. Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lakshman,
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you very much for that item. Now we're gonna move forward to the next item. It's a board action item. It's for the Fremont R100 default request. It's a request of the city of Fremont to opt up to some or all their customers to R100. I think there was a session on July 10th. I think it was about 2 hours long, covering more in detail what that impact is to Ava Community Energy and the load that would be related to having Fremont, a significant element of our service territory, impacting our community. So I think that's why it was brought forward as an action item. So I think somebody will cover that item.
Yes, hi Chair Hernandez. I'm here and happy to cover the item.
Did I miss something? Oh, my apologies. 1 second. Oh, this chair report. My apologies, Alex. Give me 1
No
second.
worries.
I skipped it because I highlighted it and then my eyes went to the next thing. So let me go back and just go over. Thank you, Member Lutz, about the chair report. I'll do that now. It'll give me about a minute to cover that. So the board met, and I'll report back out on June 12th to cover the item that was on the agenda. And there we had various public comments around refraining from taking the nuclear allocation. There were some comments about resilient hubs as well, and the efforts to really support low-income and disadvantaged communities to obtain solar systems in addition to batteries. And there were further comments on resilient hubs, make sure that we have community-supported, comprehensive, and equitable hub program that provides support for the community's energy and non-energy needs. And then there's also discussion about critical municipal facilities program, identifying that and support to have those resources through the city and entities. Further comments about rejecting PG&E's nuclear energy allocation and to invest in clean energy instead. Further comments again about the same 2 items around nuclear allocation rejection, as well as resilient hubs. And then there was a closed session item to talk through about the new CEO looking to identify where CEO Chassett was going to end his reign or over the last 6 years. And then they moved forward through additional items towards closed session to appoint Howard Chang as the new CEO of Ava Community Energy unanimously that evening. With that, that was agreed upon, read through compensation, and their comments congratulating Howard as well. I think he's been in the seat for the last 6 years, and that was unanimous. From there, I also brought the chair report from this meeting that we emphasized that the CAC voted against utilizing the nuclear allotment. We discussed how Howard presented the 65.5 decrease in net revenues. And then I spoke about how we unanimously supported the 3 items that evening: the Long Road Rosemary IPA projects, the Durham OP lunar presentation, and an incentive program for heat pumps. And when they presented the budget item, finally, we presented what was recommended. Here, was it by member, who was the member who brought it forward? the proposal, I'm sorry, let me just go back. Presented the proposal about the budget, but is ultimately rejected. Oh, it's on the other minutes. That's where it's at. Apologies, let me just go back. Adrian, who was presented the proposal? Forget one of our new members. Presented for the waterfall structure. I think we had, just trying to go back to that.
You did, and member DeFranco?
DeFranco, yes, DeFranco's proposal that we voted for and supported unanimously was not supported by the board. I went through the idea that we should go from a $50 to $30 million reserve allocation, doing on-bill credits for Cara and Farah, and additional monies for the local business development plan. It was some discussion from Member Gonzalez. And ultimately, Chair Belch moved the item to take recommendation. I believe Member Gonzalez motion to approve staff recommendation. Member Anderson seconded the motion, and unanimously to go with staff recommendation. Personally, I felt that there could have been more discussion around that space of really looking at our community first and not the organization. So I battled as much as I could that evening to bring that, and I actually made a couple additional comments about the budget reserve that they wanted to focus on. I think that ultimately there's more concern about the organization being able to support the costs associated with procuring energy, and hopefully there are more revenues come forth so we can support more of the programs we want to. I think that's mostly the report. There's a lot there. I want to make sure that I give everybody a few seconds here to digest or clarify on what I presented. And we can collectively go hiss boo to the board if you'd like to. Kidding there, just different.
Could I ask, what was the discussion about the nuclear allocation?
There was none per se other than public comment. So public comment was showing that they would want the board to reject the allocation. And they had various public comments, about 8 to 12, I think, comments came through.
Oh, a lot.
So yeah, so it came through, a few of those. Any other comments? Questions, concerns? All right, that was the report. I have nothing to go off the cuff. I just wanted to make sure I covered what there was there. And then we'll look forward to hearing the nuclear business, I think now in September, since we'll be in recess in August. And maybe there'll be the opportunity there to talk more about resilient hubs in August. All right, with that, I'll give it away to Alex. Alex, you've got the item for the Fremont R100 conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hernandez. Good evening, everyone. Alex DeGiorgio, Senior Manager of Public Engagement. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. This is an exciting topic. So thanks for tuning in to those members of the public who are doing so. I'll get right into it. Adrian, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slides, I'd be grateful. Thank you. Thank you. So first, I'm going to start with some background on the jurisdictions within AVA's service area that have already defaulted to Renewable 100 citywide. And then I'll give a little bit of background on the city of Fremont's position in this regard, and then we'll follow up with the recommendation of the board and next steps. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in March of 2021, our board approved a policy that allowed our jurisdictions to default within their borders to a product other than Bright Choice. That would be Renewable 100. And so this came in response originally to a action by the City Council of Dublin, which requested this for their residential customers initially. And so as part of addressing that request from the council, our agency put together a policy to address these types of requests because we were aware that there were other jurisdictions that were interested in doing something similar. And so in that time, there were several jurisdictions that defaulted their residential and or commercial customers to Renewable 100. Some of them did it all in one fell swoop. Others did it in phases, and some later slides will illustrate that. And then in March of this year, we decided to update the policy to kind of streamline the process and make things a little bit more straightforward for the jurisdictions in the future that would like to do so. And as a way of more context, we currently have almost half of our jurisdictions, actually 8 jurisdictions now, have some majority portion of their customers on Renewable 100 by default. Originally, Piedmont was actually the first jurisdiction to do that at their initial enrollment in 2018. Piedmont defaulted all of our residential customers to Renewable 100 from the outset. And then the other 7 jurisdictions that have done it have done that in 2021 and 2022. So currently about a third of Ava's load is Renewable 100. And that will become more like a quarter once the cities of Stockton and Lathrop begin service next year. Fremont would be by far the largest jurisdiction to do so if it's approved by the board. And to just provide some background on the city of Fremont's decision, it was just recently in June that the Fremont City Council unanimously passed a resolution to default all residential and commercial customers to Renewable 100. That would be with the exception of those customers who are on CARE, FARA, or medical baseline discount programs, as has been the case in other cities. Those customers are not included in these default enrollments. Of course, those customers are still welcome to choose Renewable 100 if they want to. They just wouldn't be included in the default process to do so. Now, what was interesting about Fremont was the council passed more than one potential timeline they approved, and so that allows some flexibility for the timeline in which we implement. So it could be in a single enrollment in 2025, or perhaps more likely in a phased enrollment that would occur over the course of 2025 and 2026. And of course, these timelines can be adjusted to optimize customer experience, rate impacts, and power resource procurement through the authorization of the policy, which allows the CEO and the city itself to adjust the timeline as needed, and then of course inform the board. I know that was a mouthful, so I'll try to keep it a little more pithy here. Next slide, please. Thank you, Adrian. This is it's a quick synopsis or summary of all the jurisdictions that have defaulted so far and which customers are defaulted to Renewable 100. There you have the 8 cities. And again, you see the column on the far right indicates that CARE, FARA, medical baseline customers in all jurisdictions still currently default to Bright Choice. The expectation being that would be preferable for customers that are on low-income discount programs in particular, because Bright Choice, of course, has the discount of 5% compared to PG&E standard rates. And then municipal accounts for our jurisdictions, like any other customer, they can choose Renewable 100 or Bright Choice whenever they so choose. So these defaults could impact them, but in most cases, our member jurisdictions, the municipal accounts, they've already selected the choice that they want for the time being. But of course, they can select another option whenever the timing is right for them. Next slide, per favore. Thank you. So the implementation timelines for the cities that have defaulted to Renewable 100, they vary a little bit. A little more than half the cities, so we 4 of the 7 that have done so since the initial enrollment. 4 of them did both residential and commercial customers together, whereas 3 of them phased it. And this, you can see here that Dublin actually had 2 different council actions when they did theirs, whereas most other jurisdictions had 1 council action where in some cases they decided to phase the enrollments. It's worth pointing out that at the time of these enrollments, wholesale energy costs for renewable power in particular were meaningfully lower than they are today. So that will be something that our board has to contend with. And as our board considers the city of Fremont's request, and then as we consider what implementation timeline to implement there. Also, for those that are paying attention to the details, the policy identifies March as the enrollment month for when these defaults go into action. That of course could be adjusted again. It could be phased based on the language of the policy. Next slide, por favor. Thank you. So The city of Fremont, and so both in terms of timing and in terms of size, it's a different situation than it has been with other jurisdictions. So Fremont is one of the largest jurisdictions that we serve. In fact, it's among the top 3 largest jurisdictions that AVA serves. It currently represents about 70% of the load that we serve. The city of Fremont was eager to pursue this because it's transitioning to Renewable 100 is one of the actions that's laid out in the city's climate action plan. And when the default is completely implemented, the city expects that about 18% of the city's GHG emissions will be addressed because the majority of the city will be on Renewable 100. And again, the one other wrinkle in the policy is that it generally says that jurisdictions, the city councils or county board of supervisors, as the case may be, have to make the request formally through an action of their council or board by the end of May. The city of Fremont is getting an exception to that because our staff actually asked the city to hold off while we performed some more analyses and due diligence on the cost impacts. So that's why, despite the fact that the policy may state that that city councils need to make these decisions by the end of May, the Fremont City Council was given a little extra time until June to consider the item and to pass it. Next slide, please. So just to give some more color to the how large Fremont is, it's worth demonstrating that Fremont's load is nearly twice the size of the largest jurisdiction that's ever defaulted to Renewable 100, and that would be the city of Hayward. And Fremont's nearly 3 times the size of the next largest city, the city of San Leandro, that has done this. And then apart from those 2 cities, Fremont's load is roughly equivalent to the size of all other cities that have defaulted to Renewable 100. So this really is an unprecedented opportunity that we have before us and that our board will have on Wednesday evening. Again, this is, it's a very large portion of our load. And that is one of the reasons why this item is going to be accompanied by a cost allocation methodology item that's up for discussion by our board to really get into the weeds on how to allocate costs for Renewable 100. Because to be perfectly candid, we expect that given the wholesale costs of renewable energy currently, that should our board approve Fremont's request, that the premium for Renewable 100 is very likely to increase. And so the question will be by how much? And that's another reason why there's the opportunity to phase the enrollment, because that could be one way to mitigate the cost impacts to Renewable 100 customers. Because the increase to the premium would affect all of the customers that are currently on Renewable 100. So all of those cities that have currently defaulted to Renewable 100, any customers that have voluntarily chosen Renewable 100, they would all be impacted by any cost increases that might arise from Fremont's default enrollment to Renewable 100. Next slide, s'il vous plaît. And so thank you, Adrian. And so just to give folks a kind of a sense of the estimated impacts, and I want to preface this by saying the cost allocation methodology has still yet to be presented to and discussed by our board. And some of these numbers were actually developed before the cost allocation methodology was really fully worked out. But based on current rates, historical usage, and current market conditions, this table kind of lays out what we would expect the increase to the Renewable 100 premium to be. So I'll take a moment to walk through this. So the 2025 enrollment, so where it says all Fremont, one single enrollment, that's where you'd see the largest jump, most likely, to the Renewable 100 premium. So it's currently a quarter of a penny per kilowatt hour, but it would go up to more than half a penny per kilowatt hour in that case. And then the other 2 rows there have assessed different sequences of a phased enrollment. So one could begin with residential customers in 2025, commercial customers in 2026, or you could reverse that. My sense is starting with residential customers would probably be the more likely approach. And as you can see there, it also has a little bit less of a cost impact. And so when you phase it with residential customers in 2025 and then commercial customers in 2026, you see that mitigates the anticipated increase to the Renewable 100 premium. And again, I just want to reiterate that this would not affect just those in Fremont. This table was focusing on Fremont's customers, of course, because Fremont is the jurisdiction that's contemplating this at the moment. But any increase would be across the board for all customers on Renewable 100. Next slide, please. So our recommendation is to the board to approve a resolution regarding Fremont's request to default customers to Renewable 100. And then we're seeking the board's direction on which implementation timeline to pursue. And that would be either the all at once in 2025 or phasing it in sequences from March 2025 and then again in March 2026. And then just included some language from the policy that does allow for some flexibility in the timeline, and which also is reflected in the draft resolution that's being proposed to the board as well. So with that, I think I'd be prepared to take questions if there are any.
Thank you, Alex. We'll take questions from members in the room. Member Lutz.
Alex, you say that it's going to be applied to all Renewable 100 customers. When was that decision made?
Well, there's only one rate for Renewable 100 customers. So any increase to that rate affects all customers. There wasn't a separate decision for that.
When? So.
Member Lutz, can you get closer to the microphone?
So there's no possibility of saying charging Fremont customer. I mean, it seems odd that the decision wasn't discussed that the costs would be applied, the incremental costs would be applied to the customer, the incremental customers. So when new customers come in, they pay the prices like that. That's the way we pay the PCIA, for example.
Right. Yeah. So the way the policy is written, there is no vintaging aspect of it. So we wouldn't, the policy doesn't provide for AVA having its own internal PCIA, for example. So and with all of the jurisdictions that have previously implemented a default to Renewable 100 under the policy, any cost impacts have been borne by all customers on that rate because it's its own specific rate. So any changes to the Renewable 100 rate, whether it be a reduction or an increase, affects all customers. So that wasn't a separate decision that was made. That's just how the policy was written and approved, and that's how the rate operates like any other.
We don't have the stepped rates that PG&E does on different rates for different total quantities of kilowatt hours per month.
Well, that would be something separate from vintaging.
Okay, so it's a default that hasn't been discussed yet, is what you're saying.
I'm not sure I follow.
The decision to apply the uniform R100 rate to everybody on R100 is a decision that was made years ago or was made by default and never really discussed.
So Renewable 100 and Bright Choice, they're both their own separate products with their own separate rates. So when there's a rate change that's made to one of those rates, it affects all customers on those rates.
I understand. I'm just, and I'm not sure think that's a bad thing. I haven't thought about it carefully. I'm just pointing out that that was a decision that was made and never made by default or by historically, and it's never been questioned. Should it be questioned? And I'm not saying it should, I'm just pointing out that that doesn't have to be the way it is. I mean, I'm sure PG&E would squawk about doing that.
I mean, I think it is it conceivable that Ava could have a vintaging methodology akin to the PCIA for Renewable 100 customers? I guess that's technically possible, but that's not contemplated by the policy, and that's never been implemented before.
All right, thank you. So I think we have, let me look at Member Weiner, and I think Member Landry, Member Lakshan, and then Pacheco. I want to clarify, and then we'll get to Member Stevenson on the phone. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but I need to go back to beginnings. First of all, why is it that the R100 rate is so much higher than the right choice rate? Is it because renewable energy is more expensive? Is that the bottom line?
Yes, it's because renewable resources are more expensive.
And
Yeah.
why is including Fremont's population in the R100 going to raise the rates for everybody else? I don't get it.
It's for two reasons. One, it's the size of Fremont's load. So you're gonna, if all of Fremont, which would represent currently about 17% of our entire load, chooses that product or is defaulted to that product, and assuming that a majority of customers stay with it, that would substantially increase demand for that product. And so we would have to procure more energy for that product. And in terms of timing, which is the other key factor here, renewable energy is at historic highs right now in the wholesale markets. So there's that combination of increased demand with constrained supply, and that causes an increase in the cost.
Well, okay, I'm sorry to pursue this a bit, but
Please.
increase in demand within AVA is interesting, but really imperceptible in terms of statewide or nationwide demand. So our sources of power are still the same as any other community energy aggregator would have. And so I don't see that the increase in demand itself should require us to pay more than the going rate. If the going rate is going up, and what you're saying is that all new procurements cost a lot more, and that will be averaged with the existing contracts we have, I guess I understand that. I think that's what you're saying, is that it's just more expensive to buy renewable energy right now. So if we're buying more, it's at a higher price, so the average will now be higher.
Right. If we're buying more now, or in the in the current markets, then we're going to be buying at a higher rate. And I should point out that Renewable 100 is resourced by 100% California-based wind and solar resources. So that's why that's another constraint that we have in that market. So we're limited geographically to where we make those wholesale purchases.
Okay, but is Renewable 100 set in stone by somebody else or set by AVA?
AVA sets the rates.
Then why on earth wouldn't we take advantage of the renewable energy coming in through CAISO from Nevada?
And we're going to remember, we're just going to focus on clarifying questions, and then we can get into more.
Okay.
So we want to focus on that.
I'm just trying to figure out what the basis is for having R100 be only California facilities when California Solar is, and when it's been constrained by various permitting obstacles.
So I think this is all a great precursor for the cost allocation methodology item that's going to be before the board on Wednesday night. But part of the goal of Renewable 100, I think, was to help, was to give customers an opportunity to support the development of local and in-state renewable resources. And that's historically why it's been kind of an opt-in program, why folks could voluntarily, who wanted to pay more to support that mission, could do so, while others could take advantage of a lower cost option, which AVA, by our joint powers agreement, is required to have, which would be the Bright Choice option.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Landry.
Yes, I have a couple questions also. So have you done the actual cost analysis for the renewable 100 when City of Fremont is included?
Yes, we've conducted several analyses, and the cost allocation, the cost allocation methodology offers several different directions we could go with further analyses.
So was that, unless I missed something, which, was that presented tonight also? I mean,
What was presented tonight was an initial estimate analysis with current rates and historic usage, but that was developed before the cost allocation methodology was developed. And so before we continue, we wanted to bring to the board for discussion and ultimately for action more options for how to allocate costs. And similar to the previous questions, some of those issues would entail what, if any, of AVA's historical contracted resources should go to procuring future volumes of renewable energy, or what should be purchased on the spot market for future jurisdictions that are defaulting, such as Fremont. So how to allocate the cost is going to be a question that our board is going to be grappling with, and then our depending on what direction our board would like to go with how to allocate costs, further analyses will be conducted.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to ask is, I do agree with the previous comment by Member Lutz that policy is not.
Member Landry, can you get closer to the
Okay,
microphone?
yeah,
too?
thank
you.
Policy is not absolute. We can always review policy. Many governmental boards review policy, and so maybe we need to look at the policy for the cost for renewable energy. We also have some healthy reserves. Maybe perhaps we can use some of our reserves to fund renewable 100. I will say
Member Landry.
unequivocally, I am for renewable 100 to mitigate climate change, which is clearly.
Member Landry, if we
Okay.
can just get clarifying questions and we can come back to your
That's
comments.
fine.
My
I'm-
apologies, I don't mean to
No,
interrupt.
that's fine.
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate that.
Of course, thank you. Member Lakshan. Yes, please.
Hi, hi, Alex. My
Hi.
question is, and I can't remember the actual numbers, but we are supposed to be a certain percentage above, for R 100, above PG&E's rate, and a certain percentage below for Bright Choice. Are we within the requirements with these rate changes?
Oh yeah. So we don't, to be clear, we don't have to be within a certain percentage of PG&E's rates. What's required by the joint powers agreement is to offer a one rate that's below PG&E standard rates, and one rate that offers something that's more 100% renewable or 100% carbon free, as the case may be. But exactly what the premium would be for that latter product, it's not spelled out what percentage that would have to be. And our current discount for Bright Choice is 5%, but it's been 1.5%. It's been, I believe, 4%, and now it's 5%.
That's the number I was wondering about. I thought it was supposed to be like 5% or something for Bright Choice, right? And what was it for Renewable 100?
So Bright Choice, so currently the value proposition is a 5% discount for Bright Choice and 1/4 of a penny per kilowatt hour premium for Renewable 100.
Okay, so does this meet that for a renewable 100 then?
So what would, if Fremont's request to default to renewable 100 is approved, that quarter of a penny per kilowatt hour would remain until the next budgeting cycle, at which case it would very likely have to be increased beyond a penny per kilowatt, beyond a quarter of a penny per kilowatt hour, perhaps to a half a penny per kilowatt hour or more.
My concern is that what are we telling people and what for the expectations? Because to me, this is a discouragement for renewable energy. That's right, to keep increasing. It's just sort of my economic background. It feels like if you have more supply, price, more, you should have the prices should be going down, right? But so it seems like it's a good thing that we're getting more people to join AVA, but it seems like we're punishing the people that are already the first movers, and that doesn't seem logical to me. It's discouraging renewable energy.
Yeah, I think that this is why we're asking the board to consider the cost allocation methodology for this, because when previous jurisdictions defaulted to renewable 100, wholesale energy prices were in a different place, and they've increased quite dramatically in the last couple of years for a variety of reasons. So for us to purchase substantially more renewable energy to serve substantially more load is going to put upward pressure on prices for renewable 100. And so we want to be as candid and clear about that as possible.
Thank you, Alex. I just don't understand why it seems like we're bringing more and more renewables online in this past year. I was just looking at some numbers with storage. We have tons of storage now. So I don't understand why it's increasing as we're getting more renewables online. Why are the prices increasing? So
there's a litany of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is our interconnection issues. For example, just the time it takes to develop the project is already quite substantial, but then it can be a long time before those projects actually get interconnected and start feeding the grid. There's supply chain issues. There's the variability of weather. There's increased temperatures. There's a whole host of reasons why right now the cost of renewable energy in particular at the wholesale level is going up. There's also quite a bit of demand for it. It's not just our customers in our jurisdictions that are wanting to purchase more of it. It's other load serving entities like us. So there's kind of a rush on renewable energy, which is a good thing, but the supply is not keeping pace with the demand.
Anything else, Member Pappas? Thank you. Later. Okay, we'll come back to that. And I think Member Pacheco had a comment or a clarifying question.
Yeah, Alex, you already actually answered the question I had when I raised my hand, which was confirming that the reason for the increase was that the new renewables are just way more expensive. But I have a question about the chart on slide 8. Is the increase in the percentage increase for 25 and 26, is that the equivalent of how much more expensive the renewables are on the market, 220% and 180% for 25 and 26? Is that like kind of the state of the market, 200 times and 180 times for the next 2 years?
The last numbers that I saw were a megawatt hour for renewable energy, instead of being in like the $10 to $15 range, was more in the like $75 to $85 range.
So that actually is a lot worse than the percentage increase. So I don't know how that all maps out, but okay, that's interesting. And then so another question is, so for you guys that are like paying attention to the market, do we foresee that in 27, 28, 29, 30, do we see this dipping back down? Or is this going to be an increasing duck curve up? What are we thinking? And I know this is forecasting. What are we thinking the market's going to look like from 26 on?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. It's a question that we're all asking ourselves, and we don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. I think that the expectations are that wholesale rates could stay elevated compared to what they used to be, but will they stay this high? I think the expectation is that more of our projects that are already under contract or already under development will be coming online. So the hope is that by 27 and 28, or perhaps even sooner, we might see some of these costs soften, but we certainly don't want to assume that to be the case. Of course, there could be other issues that arise between now and then, more interconnection issues, more supply chain issues, more heat events like the ones we've recently seen. So I think we're trying to be as conservative as we can as we do that forecasting. I realize, Ernie, that's probably not the most satisfying of answers.
I know that's 3 years out is a little bit crystal ball. I was just wondering what kind of like the sense was. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I would encourage you to tune in on Wednesday night as when our technical experts really get into the nitty-gritty of how to allocate these types of costs between long-term contracts and spot market purchases and that sort of thing.
Thank you. And then we'll go on to our member Stevenson online, and we'll come back to the room for another clarifying question, and then we'll go to public comment. Member Pete.
Yes, thank you. So I had originally 4 questions. One of them has already been answered, so I have 3. Based on the table on slide 8, it looks like regardless of the path that's taken to get to Fremont defaulting to Renewable 100, the Renewable 100 premium goes up by about 180% by 2026. Is that right? So it's like the big, yeah, okay. It looks like the big step or the big difference in steps is for 25, and then 26, it all kind of smooths out and they're all about 180% increase.
Yeah, under these estimates, I think these numbers could change depending on which direction the board ultimately goes with the cost allocation methodology.
I see. Okay. Okay. Question 2. So this is a pretty big spike in the Renewable 100 premium. Can that be lessened perhaps by spreading out the phasing in process over a longer period of time? Like, for example, phasing in 20% of Fremont residential customers every year for 5 years. Like, would that be able to maintain or maybe reduce the current baseline premium?
Yeah, it's a great question. Potentially, yeah. I mean, again, that kind of depends on where markets go over the course of time. Right now, what's only been contemplated is 2025 and 2026. That's really what was only considered by Fremont City Council. But yes, I mean, phasing the implementation could take a variety of forms. But we really haven't done analyses on more than 25 and 2026. And it really might be a good opportunity, a moment here to, again, just for historical context, originally the Renewable 100 premium was a penny per kilowatt hour. So a full penny per kilowatt hour. So today it's a quarter of a penny per kilowatt hour. So it's come down substantially. And so now we're talking about, as we contemplate a dramatic increase in the load at a time when wholesale energy rates are historically high, we're talking about that premium going up again. But even in the numbers that we see here, and again, these are just estimates, none of them are a full penny per kilowatt hour. So we actually still would be, by historical context, a lower premium than it's been in the past.
Well, sure, that's true, but I mean, Californians and PG&E territory, we're already paying among the highest power costs in the country. So
agree.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. It's a quick one, I promise. The text below the table on page 8 says that the cost impacts in that table reflect only that for residential customers. What are the impacts on non-residential customers?
So percentage-wise, based on these numbers, percentage-wise, they'd be similar, but what would be different is what the monthly premium would look like. And since there are many different commercial rates, we don't have all those listed here. But the average monthly premium for commercial customers would be substantially higher because they tend to have higher volumes of usage than residential customers. And that's something that we would do more analyses on as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, we'll wait on 1 second. Let me get to Member Weiner, and then we'll come back to you, sir. Shiva. Yes, sir.
Chair Hernandez, I know that we are trying to look at this particular report by itself, but it seems to spill over to lots of other issues. So I would just like to, I don't know how to say this, but I would like us to somehow calendar a discussion of the possibility of AVA taking action to ease the supply chain. How can we make renewable energy cheaper? Is there a role for AVA to not be a passive consumer of renewable energy, but instead take steps to make it less costly? And by that, I'm not going to give a speech on this. By what I mean by that is that AVA can take action with the legislature or the various regulatory agencies in California to try to streamline that process for permitting that makes it less expensive for the developer, but ultimately all that means is cheaper for us.
Yes.
So I'd like to see if we can calendar a discussion of that at some point, because I don't see that the board has done that, and it hasn't been a traditional role of AVA.
And I think we can discuss that more when we bring up the items of member requests, but it's a valid point. We do have the CEO and Alex here if they want to address it further, but the subject at hand is about the R100 allocation. But if Howard wants to address that briefly, I think I give him the microphone. He's on screen as our new CEO.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak at that high level. That is absolutely what we do day in and day out at this agency, is to try to drive down renewable energy costs. You can't fight supply chain dynamics overnight, but obviously we work from a policy perspective to try to ease things like transmission, interconnection build out, permitting processes. We are trying to negotiate down renewable energy costs, both on a short-term basis, but also for long-term contracts where there's new builds coming in online in the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. That is the role of our agency and what we do. We are in a rising price environment, unfortunately, from both a supply chain and a sort of development process perspective, but also from a pure supply demand perspective. When demand for renewable energy goes up and supply doesn't keep pace with it, the costs will increase. And that's what we've seen across the board over the last several years. So I think it's a reflection of the interest from CCAs, from corporates, overall general demand for increased renewables. So that's the good news. The bad news is it means rising costs in the short term. That's why we're talking about cost allocation methodology. That will be on the board agenda, not tonight, of course. That's why we're talking about Fremont opt-up. Clearly, Fremont's own interest in opting up is a reflection of that increased demand for renewable energy. But when you have such load shifting, you have to manage that and manage the costs associated with that.
Thank you, Howard. I'm going to move this along, if I can, member. I'm going to move to members to Omedeton for a clarifying comment question.
Yes. So we're talking about the REC prices being high in the short term, right? That's what causing this going up. Is that correct?
That's correct. Prices in the short term, prices, quite frankly, unfortunately, prices for the long term right now have increased for long-term PPAs as well. So it's overall, it's an increased price environment.
Right. But the REC prices is backwardated, correct? The REC prices in the current term is higher than, say, 3 years or 4 years out.
That's correct, yeah.
So could we buy a flat strip of RECs for 4 years, pay a flat price, kind of averaging out the high prices currently and the lower prices later, and kind of mitigate this early price shock?
Yes, that's what we do. We go negotiate 1, 3, 5, 10, 15-year contracts to try to mitigate cost impacts. I just want to be conscious of that's not really the topic of this agenda item. This agenda item is really focused on Fremont, and obviously we're talking about implications and impacts on that pricing. But on just sort of general procurement management, cost management, of course, that is part of what we do in order to mitigate costs. But even if you sign a 4-year contract to try to mitigate the high price points that we're seeing in sort of the very near term, the 4-year price contract that you're signing is also at a higher price than, in a lower cost environment. Yeah, that's right. I mean, the forecasts are all for higher costs, not just for this year, but that certainly bleeds into future years as well. So all of that is at a more elevated level than previously.
Got it. Now, would you want the commission to opine on the two choices you laid out? Is that kind of where we're headed today?
We'll pause to get public comment and we'll come back for member comments or recommendations at the moment.
Got
So
it.
we'll come back to the committee and we'll go to public comment in the room and then online if that's possible. So I'll look to Adrian to see what we have in the room and who we have, and then online if we can. Public comment? Yes. Thank you. 3 minutes.
Yeah, two things. The first is the whole point of the local development business plan, which was East Bay, now Ava Community Energy's local development business plan, was to do local investments so we rely less on the market. As long as we're relying on the market, we're always going to be faced with price volatility. I mean, it's very rare you see prices go down on anything, right? The second thing is I really would like to also just remind people of the sensitivity that not everyone can afford premium rates for energy, right? And so this is why I've talked in the past about a need to design an ongoing debt relief program for folks who are struggling to pay their bills, whatever the situation, to help community-based organizations actually enroll community people into the programs that exist. Because oftentimes there's a struggle with language barrier, literacy, and we advocated for something like that back in 2021 based off of like pandemic debt. And it was actually instituted by Ava, but it was only done once. And these programs are needed ongoing. And so when you make a decision to opt everybody up into premium price energy, you're actually really hurting people that are already down and struggling to pay for those rates. I think the other point to make is the whole point of like climate action plans was to do real local action of reducing emissions, pollution, not just buying RECs from far away and improving the air in other places and not in our own communities. So, you know, just really begs for cities to be doing more in terms of, you know, reducing the emissions from buildings, reducing emissions from diesel fleets, municipal fleets, for example, that are running on diesel. I mean, there's so many things. A lot of these things are covered in the local development business plan. We can go on and on, but I do think staff really needs to think about this more holistically. And because there are new people on this body, as well as the board, and I've seen you do this many times, is have workshops on all the offerings of the agency, because I think we need to really look at this more holistically. I think the last thing is that we need to stop this illusion that we're gonna buy our way out of climate change by buying you know, clean energy elsewhere. We need to really start thinking about the local investments that we need to be doing now to reduce pollution locally. That's the bottom line. Clean power to the people.
Thank you. Audrey Ichinose, recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Audrey Ichinose, East Bay Clean Power Alliance and the statewide California Alliance for Community Energy. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One was from the customer's point of view, what are his or her options when faced with this new opting up to Renewable 100? Is the only option available to opt out of AVA, or can they still opt down to Bright Choice? So that's one question. Secondly, I wonder if the city of Fremont expressed any concern about its enrollment of low-income people in the CareFera discount programs. I think, you know, if you're raising the price that everyone has to pay, you really are obligated to find out how many more people are eligible for CareFera and pursue them vigorously. So if you could answer those questions, thank you.
So to the point of the public comment, just we can quickly address the Fremont could opt up. When they opt up, could they opt down or out? I think the answer is yes, but I'll ask Alex to clarify.
Oh, you're muted.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Audrey, for that question, because I want to reiterate that all customers will still have the option to choose Bright Choice. So if customers want to retain that discount, or if customers go on Renewable 100 and then they decide they'd prefer to have the discount with Bright Choice, they have that option. And just to reiterate, customers that are on low-income discount programs like CARE, are not included in the default transition to Renewable 100. So they would remain on Bright Choice.
Thank you, Alex. Is there another question in the room? And that's public comment? Yes.
Brendan Pittman, you recognize for 3 minutes.
Quick couple questions. I think you mentioned this earlier. The Fremont Climate Action Plan, was that specifically to go to 100% renewables, or was that just 100% clean energy? I'm curious if Bright Choice, say, was 100% clean energy, would that satisfy? Just something to think about. My next question is, does AVA have energy or data for how many people opt out of the auto opt-in options? I'm from Berkeley, so I was auto opted in. So I'm curious how many or what the percentage of like the previous communities were automatically opted in and then chose to opt to Bright Choice, and just like, is that being factored in to potential planning scenarios? And then, you know, if they do track this data, I would suggest that if this action does proceed and Fremont does have an auto opt-in to Renewable 100, I'd like to see that data on how many people opt out. I think that'd be a curious or interesting piece of data to understand public appetite right now in 2024 for a Renewable 100 plan versus, say, the Bright Choice plan, which is getting to 100% clean energy. So I think that would be interesting about cost and cleanliness of energy. I think just another couple suggestions. You know, we're getting a lot of questions and interest about the energy market forces. I think having a slide on that, some background, if you go to next meetings, would be helpful. And then having outreach online about this. You know, I think if we're already asking questions, customers are definitely going to be asking questions about this, about, you know, why is my rate higher, and, you know, what's causing that? You know, very similar questions to why everybody's asking in the room here. So outreach is really important on this. And then the last question was, I think on maybe just a clarification for future slides. I'm going to call it column D on slide 8, I think it was. I think I'd be curious. I think that's the premium percentage to the PG&E baseline. If you could just clarify that, maybe offline or something, or update the slide. Premium to what? Is it premium to PG&E plan or premium to Bright Choice? I think it's PG&E though, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So any data decision that we may have, might be helpful for the board meeting and here too. But do you have any data points, Alex, on people opting down or out of AVA after these opt-ups?
Yes, thank you. You know, I don't have the specific numbers at hand right now, but I can tell you that when we've done this in previous enrollments, we absolutely have looked at those numbers, both the percentage of customers that opt out of AVA entirely and return to PG&E, and the percentage of customers that opt for Bright Choice. And what we noticed in Berkeley and in some of the other jurisdictions that have done this previously, the percentage of customers that opt out extremely low, like fraction of a percent, really not a large increase. And the customers that opt for Bright Choice, that was a meaningful number. I think if I recall, now it varied by jurisdiction, but I think on average it was about 4 to 7%. So there was a real meaningful number of people who chose Bright Choice actively. And that was very validating to our team and our colleagues at the cities, because it reflected that people were aware that this was going on, that they knew what their options were, and that they knew how to take action. So yeah, we did do those, we did review those numbers, and they reflected what we hoped, was that people saw that they had other options and that they took them, and that generally they were choosing the most cost-conscious option, which would be Bright Choice. If they, if they wanted to take a different action, that is.
Alex, did you say 4 to 7% or 47% up to
No,
down?
4 to 7, not 47.
Okay, good. I just was trying to understand. And to the question from earlier, I think there was a question about collections and quote unquote bad debt. Have you seen that occur where you have more collections or people not able to pay their bills because it's gotten more expensive, or that something you can't really separate based on trends or changes in the product that people are receiving through AVA?
I can't say that's something that we saw during those enrollments, but my guess is that there are going to be a lot of confounding factors there too, as PG&E's rates have been increasing as well, since they've increased so substantially. I imagine it'd be hard to parse out what was the particular cause for people's indebtedness, but we don't have any data to indicate that there was an increase to people of people who weren't paying their bill related to these default enrollments.
Maybe some of the open roles, like a data analyst, can help us parse that out. So I think some new roles coming forward. Any other public comment, Adrian?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Also, then I'll take comments from the CAC. Member Weiner.
This is just a note on the discussion of rising costs and that we try to keep them down. I don't know whether there's a CCA, trade association or whatever, that operates in Sacramento, but I would just urge us to get in touch with some of the renewable energy trade associations who are saying that costs are 10, 15% higher just because of the regulatory agency delay that we find in approving projects in California versus any other state in the country, not just Texas. There's just a lot of red tape, and we should have a role in reducing that red tape. It's not just, the interconnection is really important, transmission is really important, but I can tell you that the cost of money is such that when you have a year or two delay in a project, number one, you can miss your queue position. Number two, you may have to pay a few $1 million more to CAISO to retain that queue position. All of it mounts up. And in that way, on the regulatory front, dealing with the agencies that are delaying renewable energy in California, I think we are passive. So I think all CCAs are, but I just think, because we don't see it as our role, but it eventually has to do with costs.
Alex, do we have a Cal CCA organization or something like that?
Yes, yeah, there is the Cal CCA, and that is the trade association that represents CCAs in California. And both collectively with them, as well as on our own, we are active both in legislative and regulatory issues. Our policy team is.
Member Weiner to go to Sacramento and pound those steps and advocate for us. So, or we can do it collectively, or maybe Alex will give you a call, and we can work together on that. Thank you, member. Other members from the room? Member Landry?
Yes, I wanted to clarify, are we getting the same presentation that the board is going to be getting on Wednesday?
On this item, yes, for Fremont's default to Renewable 100 request, yes.
Yes, okay.
This is a board action item. There's a member, Somerton. Yes. Hello.
Yeah, I just want to mention that I have to leave in about 5-10 minutes. So if this requires voting, I just want to learn about it. Are we voting on anything on this topic?
It is a board action item, so we can take a motion to support staff recommendation to support the resolution regarding Fremont's request to default customers to Renewable 100. I think there is a mention there in the slide that the chief executive officer and the member city may mutually agree upon a different implementation schedule, provided the CEO provides that information to the board and agreed upon schedule. So I think that can change. But the fact that I believe that Fremont wants to move up into Renewable 100, and there are some, I think, guide rails on that, some supporting efforts to support, not opt up the Karen Farrow. I think we can take a motion if it's of interest to this board. Excuse me, this committee.
So there's an option 1 and option 2. Are we?
I think right now the option is right now to approve the resolution, recommend approval of the resolution to the board of directors to opt customers in Fremont to Renewable 100. Is that correct, Alex?
Yes, and the resolution is to approve the city of Fremont's request to default Renewable 100. And then we, in addition to that, the recommendation is to seek the board's guidance on the timeline for implementation.
So the 2 timelines laid out.
Yes.
So would you like the CAC guidance on that too?
I defer to you all. That's something that we're seeking from the board, as far as guidance on that, which would include the city of Fremont's Councilmember Cox, who represents the city there.
Okay. Members want to on anything further?
Nope. Thank you.
Member Locke. Oh, I'm trying to get about soon. Yes, thank you.
So I understand what we're going to be voting on, but I'm so uncomfortable representing the entire people that have already opted into Renewable 100, saying you have no choice, you're going to have to pay all this, increased prices, and it's still going to keep going up, which is counter to what we're trying to do by including more and more cities. That's good. So I'm just, I feel like we just need to figure out, I think what Member Weiner was saying, I don't think I feel comfortable saying that people who are already struggling with the highest energy rates in this country should be increasing their rates more to do the right thing for climate change. So I don't know what the answer would be. I don't know what the answer would be to do, but I'm uncomfortable with that.
We can take no action from the CAC and just share comment concern to the board. Really the purview of this committee to infer or inform the board on the impacts of concern as we vet this recommendation to the board. And I'm going to look to Member Landry. She has a question.
Yes.
Comment.
So I understand that the Kara and Farah clients don't have to opt into Renewable 100. Let's say there were other folks, Alex, that later on wanted to, because of costs, wanted to default. How long does it take someone to default into back into right choice, please?
The question, Member Landry, is if someone wants to choose Bright Choice instead, how long does it take for that to be implemented?
Right. I mean, what I'm saying is, if I'm not a Kara and Farah customer and I find that the bill is too high for me to continue in Renewable 100, how long does it take? Let's say I call. How long does it take to implement that change? If I can get an idea.
It typically takes one or two billing cycles.
Okay.
So one or 2 months, depending on when the request is made relative to the billing cycle. But yeah, typically it's done within 2 billing cycles.
Right. And the other thing that I heard in public comment, could we assist in this transition? Could we assist customers that are behind on their bill as part of this resolution to get current on their bill or some type of credit? Maybe the public would speak a little bit more, but some type of credit or debt relief, as we've done in the past. And we do have healthy reserves. I want to note that also. I mean, is that, could we add to our resolution, assistance with, what could we recommend?
Well, yeah, it's up to us, how we would want to structure the recommendation to the board for approval, such as you would want to approve the resolution and look to have a lower impact on residential. For example, that third option, have residential roll in 2025 and 2026, but ensure there's public outreach to support the members in the community and understanding further that they are going to be opted up. There are options to opt down or out, and further assistance would be hopefully available to help with struggling clients or customers in the service territory. But I'm just curious, I think to your point, Member Landry, is there language like that that goes out to the customers, Alex? I see your hand is raised. I'm just curious about our protocol or process when people do opt out.
So if the question, you mean opt up in the form of a default enrollment, or when they choose to opt up voluntarily? In the default enrollments, we send notices to all customers, just like similar to an initial enrollment. Every customer account will get 2 notices informing them about this change and what their options are. And also, I put my hand up just as a point of clarification that staff is not requesting the CAC to take a vote on this. So it's not, this is an item we wanted to bring to the CAC for the body's awareness and to receive feedback, but we aren't requesting a vote.
Just to clarify, Alex, when it says board action item, normally do they not want, or we don't have to take a position, but we could go forward with a recommendation to take the action up. Is that right?
It's certainly, the CAC is free to take a vote if it so chooses. That's not required by, it's not requested by the staff or required by for the board to make to take action.
I'm looking to my right, the Member Bakusun, and then we'll go to Member Pacheco.
Yeah, I think that I would like Fremont to be able to join, probably in a phased way. However, I think it's important that we also ask for a long-term process to figure this out, because as we keep adding more people, we can't be raising the rates every single time. So I think I would like to amend this if there's a motion to add something that says, I liked what Member Weiner said. I mean, I think if we could get some process, some legislative action going about this, or looking at the way the costs are allocated, we could add those 2 things maybe to it.
So if I may, Chair Hernandez, the discussion on Wednesday for the board on the cost allocation methodology, I think is going to address some of what's being expressed here. It's going to address some of those wishes about the long-term plans for pricing along these lines.
I mean, maybe it would be how many communities can we accept because of the cost burden? I mean,
yeah.
I just think we can't blindly say, let's keep adding people if it's going to cost everybody a lot of money. And I really don't like the idea, and I just want this to be on record, of pitting price against climate change. I just think that is the wrong approach. So whatever we can do.
Thank you. Member Pacheco, I think you have your hand up.
A clarifying question first. So thinking about this in relationship to our stated goal of being 100% for the entire.
I'll need you next to the microphone, sorry.
Looking at this in relationship to our 2030 goal of 100% renewable or zero carbon by 2030, I think maybe does that affect how long this premium would affect the 100%, the R100 customers? Would it basically flatline out? Which I wasn't thinking about earlier when I was asking. So is this basically a 4-year, a 2-year? It's articulated as 2 years here, but at most would be a 4-year before it flatlines to what would be the default or the mean premium for everyone, since we're going to 100%.
Member Pacheco, I really appreciate that question, because it's good to remind everyone that our agency does have a board-approved policy of providing 100% carbon-free energy by 2030 for customers on Bright Choice. So the distinction would be that Renewable 100 is 100% renewable from resources based in California, wind and solar based here in California. So that would probably still be offered at a premium. What that will be at 2030, I wouldn't want to venture a guess, but it would be on Bright Choice under the current conception of the 2030 clean energy goal, where all Bright Choice customers would have 100% carbon-free energy. So that would not just be renewable energy. That could include large hydro, for example, which doesn't qualify as renewable.
Okay, no, thank you for clarifying that. I had forgotten that important detail. So then also a couple comments. So I myself am out of Hayward. I mean, none of us explicitly represent our own cities, even though we're looking out for the entire community. But I feel a little bit extra protective of Hayward. Hayward was I think the second and is the largest community signed up to R100. Taking these premiums, these forecasted premiums at face value, I just don't have the skill set to know how true they are. While I do absolutely share our community members from Local Clean Energy Alliance who spoke up on the fact that we have to really worry about the CARE and FARA and those who don't actually, who are not enrolled or should be, of any increase, and my fellow members' articulation about concern about everyone else who's already been R100. $1.60 a month, I don't see as horrible. I don't see that as a make or break. I'm inclined to support, if someone makes a motion, I don't have to make a motion to support the staff recommendation on this. And also with a clear, I would support the chair who's giving the report at the board, in articulation of what multiple members and the public were talking about, which is, can we do something to really make sure that people know this rate increase is coming, and whether they're currently enrolled in R100, that they have a chance to opt out. And also, there probably not too many CARE and FARA customers that are currently enrolled in R100. There probably are, well, no, there wouldn't be. But yeah, so I'm inclined to support this with an articulation of the board that we really want to make sure that people understand the rates are going up and they have a chance to opt out.
Member Weiner.
Mr. Chair, I strongly support the last speaker on two ways. One, I'm dedicated to fighting climate change and therefore increasing the amount of renewable energy we get as soon as possible. Number two, I really think that consumer choice is important. We do serve consumers. And the imposition of $12, $15 a year to me is not much, is nothing. But to somebody, it may be something. I'm a consumer and as an AVA member, I'm also receive energy from AVA. I can tell you that even though I went to law school, I can't see the ability to opt out in my bill. It's not clear. It's like most of the other stuff I get from insurance companies and car dealers. It's totally opaque. So what I would do, what I would vote to recommend is that we go forward with this plan as soon as possible, rather than phase it, but that we have an insert in people's bills that gives them a much clearer option that says, if you don't, we believe in renewable energy. If you don't, or you don't want to pay for it, you get to opt out into Bright Choice. Because I really don't feel that consumers know that. We may think they do, but I don't think they do. So I think that's in the spirit of what you were saying about opting out.
Someone asked a clarifying question because I had a motion on the table, and I think I heard a second, but then I heard you say you would rather do it all at once versus a phase approach. I think Member Pacheco said it was more the phased approach. I want to look at which phase approach you're thinking, if any. I want to clarify that. So are you thinking about the residential first?
I did not have a recommendation on which phase in.
No recommendation from you. Member Weiner, recommendation from you on the phase in approach?
I said as soon as possible, but I'm neutral on that for purposes of this, whatever people want.
Okay, so we'll focus on the resolution 1 second while I look at hands, but I want to make sure I get this right. So we were looking at a motion to adopt a resolution to allow Fremont to opt up. No specific direction around the implementation timelines from Member Pacheco, a second by Member Weiner. I think that's what I'm hearing. I will take clarifying questions from Member Lutz and then Member Landry, and then I'll come back for any other clarifying questions. Yes, sir.
Can I make a couple friendly amendments?
You're welcome to look at the motioner in a second, of course, and sit closer to the microphone. So I think Member Lutz wants to make an
Okay.
amendment.
Friendly amendments. I support that. I would recommend that staff at Fremont and Ava negotiate the best phase-in with the emphasis on keeping prices low. That's one amendment. And the other amendment is to clarify what Member Weiner said, that since the R100 prices will go up for everyone in Ava, not just Fremont members, that an insert with a clear way on how to opt Bright Choice. And a third friendly amendment is to strongly encourage the board the board and staff to take aggressive legislative and regulatory actions to reduce connection delays and other impediments on lowering renewable energy costs.
I will try to repeat that. So I understand we are going with the recommendation to approve the resolution regarding Fremont's requested default customers to Renewable 100. There is language already that allows the Chief Executive Officer and the member city, which in this case Fremont, may mutually agree upon a different implementation schedule, but that the entities there should therefore choose the best process to keep that cost low. And then you can clarify that you want to make sure that you can have an insert how to opt down to Bright Choice, as well as making sure there's an aggressive approach to legislative actions to address connection delays and that are impediments to lowering the energy costs. Is that about right?
Yes, the insert needs to go to all Ava customers when the prices change,
To all customers then.
because the R100 prices go up for everyone.
So then more awareness that the increase is not just going to be to Fremont, but to all
Right.
Ava customers due to the change and inclusion of Fremont
Right.
agreed upon by the board.
And I think you caught the legislative, but not the regulatory part of the encourage staff and board members to put pressure on the legislation and the regulators.
Okay, understood. I saw them as one and the same, but you're right, they are different. The
They are
CPUC and the State Assembly and the State Senate.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. I've made notes of those. All right, any other comments? Yes, Member Landry?
Yeah, I have a clarification and then I have a potential amendment also. I wanted to clarify with Alex, when is the price methodology thing correctly? Is that going to be part of the board presentation on Wednesday?
The cost allocation methodology, yes, will be presented for discussion on Wednesday's board meeting.
Okay, I'd like to make this comment in all due respect. It would be helpful to have made that presentation in this meeting also. That's my opinion, because I think that's part of the analysis, at least that I need. The other thing I would like to recommend or consider it as an amendment to the motion is that because renewable 100 could be potentially more costly to some of, not so much the FERA customers, but other low-income customers outside of that. Could we consider doing some price subsidy for those, maybe, I don't know what the percentage would be, but I mean, consider up to a certain income level, some type of price subsidy and options to be, yeah, that's what I want to say for the clients that are behind their bills, so that they can have the option of renewing, opting into renewable 100.
Member Landry, you suggested a price subsidy up to a certain income level for assistance on their energy bills. Are you talking about all AVA customers or specifically Fremont?
Well,
Because if not, I want to clarify that, do we have such an item there, Alex, with AVA?
since the impact of renewable 100, as I understand it, could result in a increase next year for all customers. I guess we'd have to say all customers. I was thinking specifically about Fremont. I guess it would have to be all customers. Maybe other people have some.
I just looked to Alex, see, just to clarify, do we have any other programs other than Karen Farah to assist customers with price on bill credits or anything else?
Well, and we have issued on-bill credits in the past. I mean, in fact, Fremont customers on Karen Farah have collectively received over $1 million in on-bill credits to date.
This
And
would
I,
be outside of Kara and Farah.
yeah, well, and another, more than another $1 million have been to all customers of on-bill credits in the city of Fremont. But I did want to just make a couple clarifications. We are limited to what we can include on the bill and with the bill, so we can't necessarily provide a bill insert. But we do send a notice in the mail to every customer, 2 notices actually, alerting them of these default enrollments when they occur. And beyond that, annually, we send a joint rate mailer to all of our customers throughout our service area every year. So just, to a large extent, I think that we are already implementing what may be suggested here. We have an annual joint rate mailer that we send to every customer every year. And then we also, for the customers that are in jurisdictions that are defaulting to Renewable 100, we send them 2 notices, usually one before and after it's implemented, or the month during implementation and the month after.
Thank you, Alex. All right, so I think there was some amendments that started. I'm sorry, I'll remember about soon, 1 second. I just want to make sure I get this right. If there is going to be a CAC recommendation, so we had the first and second to support the resolution, and no defined timeline. Then we had the friendly amendments, and then need to look to the first and second to see if they want to include any elements of those friendly amendments that were made by Member Lutz or Member Landry. And if you need clarification, Alex had mentioned that there are no inserts in the mail regarding the billing, but rather they do send notices to the customers, to them when they're going to be opted up, and that annual joint mailer. So I'm going to look to you, Member Lutz. How do you want to address these amendments, items of concern, things that, no, not Member Lutz, excuse me, Member Pacheco, right? Because you made the first. You can, you have the floor.
Before we, it's very important that we speak very closely into the mic. I've received several comments that members of the public are finding it difficult to hear us in the room. So please speak directly into the mic.
Thank you.
Okay. So my understanding, Alex, is we can't just at our own desire put slips into the PG&E sent bill, but we could send out to the non-Fremont R100 customers a separate mailing saying, hey, just heads up, we expect our rate, that Fremont's joining in, and well, I don't know if we would actually say Fremont's joining, but we expect our rates to go up?
They will already be receiving an annual joint rate mailer with the most up-to-date rate information. So if what the recommendation is would be to send an additional mailer, you can make that recommendation, but it might be redundant is what I'm trying to explain. That we already send a joint rate mailer to all the customers with up-to-date rate information. So that I think this type of information would be captured in an annual joint rate mailer.
Member Pacheco has the floor.
Thank you.
Alex, does that have a clear instructions of how to opt down to Bright Choice if you're in R100? Or alternatively, opt up to R100 if you're in Bright Choice? Does that joint mailer do that?
It will typically have a URL that will direct people to a link to where they can make their selection.
And it explains what the different selections are.
Yeah, there are examples that we have under our key documents on our website if you'd like to take a look at what they look like.
I just want to make sure that people know how to do it. And judging from what Member Weiner said, it's real hard to tell how to opt down if you don't want to pay R100.
Yeah, well, the joint rate mailer historically has the phone number where you can contact our customer service and people can make their selections there, as well as the URL for our rates. And that in those pages, you can also click to the links that would take you to making a different choice than what you're defaulted to. But again, that's not on the bill, although I think that information may be contained on the bill as well. I realize that these PG&E bills are not exactly the most user-friendly of resources.
Member Bakassoon.
Is it appropriate to add to the amendment? I mean, in terms of the cost allocation question, this is for Alex, I guess. Would the rates be lower if we were bringing in electricity from renewables from other states? Would that lower our price?
So there is out-of-state renewables, although they have a direct transmission line typically from to in-state for Bright Choice customers. I think out-of-state renewables could potentially cost less, but I don't know that would really be the factor here.
So just for this committee, I can carry a lot of these comments forward about making sure we communicate how people can opt down or out. I think something that the public mentioned about community benefit organizations, there might be some opportunities to partner better to communicate, engage our customers that are maybe struggling with covering their energy costs. I think there's an element of looking out for those members of the community in those places with maybe low income or other challenges. I think that ultimately what the staff is looking for a recommendation to opt Fremont into this Renewable 100, but I think we also want to be cautious and mindful of concerns of folks who might be struggling and making sure that we can address that concern. But we do really want to focus on getting more renewables and maybe more jobs locally. So I'll go back to the motioner, Member Pacheco. Any adjustments, anything you want to do with your motion, and then look to Member Weiner for the second.
I'm happy to take the offered amendments.
Okay.
And hopefully you're not gonna make me repeat them all.
Partially I would, but that's okay. So we understand that we have the mailer that's going to go out. It's going to have information. So we're not going to have the inserts. Let's see. We want to make sure they have the legislative regulatory elements there. So we want to make sure we cover that. The advocacy there. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, so again, so we're looking at, so the mailers, the add-ins, the inserts, really not something that happens because PG mails out the bill, but they are gonna do the two notices plus the joint rate mailer that'll have information around how to opt out and a phone number. So that takes care of that. And there is no per se price subsidy to member Landry's comments about something else, but we have the CARE and FARA and those on-bill credits that are already in the budget. So the question is really more about approving the resolution and ensuring that encouraging board and staff aggressively work with the legislative regulatory agencies to address the connection delays. And the point that was brought up is that the AVA and the city of Fremont work where it's most beneficial to have that reduced cost in the implementation of this program. I think that's what I heard earlier.
Yeah.
So I think we can go from there. Yes, Member Landry?
Let me clarify. I was not, if I heard the amendment correctly, or my amendment correctly, I was not limiting it to CARA and FERA customers. I was including some debt relief that could be administered through the community for those customers that are behind on their bills.
Should board explore that option?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay, is that fine with the motioner?
Yes.
And the second is fine with that too? Okay, all right, let me just make sure, Greg. All right, so the motion on the table is to approve the resolution regarding Fremont's request to default customers. Staff with the city of Fremont will work to reduce the impact on this implementation rollout. There will be efforts to work with the legislation and regulatory agencies to reduce the impediments of energy and power and to explore debt relief opportunities programs for our clients who are struggling with paying their bills. Okay. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Member Landry?
Yes.
Member Balkasun?
Yes.
Member Weiner?
Yes.
Member Stevenson?
No.
Thank you. Member Swaminathan left the meeting early. Member Lakshman?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Member Pacheco?
Yes.
Member Harper?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Lutz?
Yes.
Chair Hernandez?
Yes, and with that, we'll take, oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, no, the motion is firm.
Motion is from, we'll take a break. We'll be back at 8:01.
Thank you.
Thank you. I lined up. There we go. All right, item C6, new community inclusion, San Joaquin County, a board action item again. It's a JPA membership request from San Joaquin County and analysis. Who's presenting the item?
Hey, Chair Hernandez, it's me again.
They don't give you a break, do they? Oh, well, thank you, Alex. You're up again. Go for it.
Sure. And for the sake of time, I think I'm going to try to go through the slides as quickly as I can. I'm not going to go through every slide. I'm going to try to just touch on the ones that are, I think, most pertinent so we can get into the Q&A, because I know that that's really where we all have the most fun.
Adelante.
So yes, so this item is also quite exciting. This is the prospective inclusion of San Joaquin County, that would be the unincorporated areas of San Joaquin County, into AVA's Joint Powers Authority and ultimately into our service area. So for some quick background, our AVA's Joint Powers Agreement has a provision for the addition of new parties. And that has previously been used to welcome new cities such as Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy in 2019, the city of Stockton in 2022, and the city of Lathrop in 2023. The other points here have to do with the timeline for when jurisdictions can begin service after they've joined. Just for everyone's awareness, there's a CPUC requirement of basically a 1 calendar year waiting period between the time a jurisdiction can join our JPA and when they can begin service. That timeline has also been adjusted for the purposes of resource adequacy requirements, which I won't get into at this time. But what that means is that in 2025, the cities of Lathrop and Stockton, which had previously been welcomed into the JPA, will begin service, so in the spring of next year. And if the board were to approve San Joaquin County's membership request before the end of this calendar year, then service would begin in 2026. And service could be phased or it could be all at once. Next slide, please. Just a quick reminder of what our service area looks like. And for those in the public who may not be quite as aware as the members of the CAC are, we currently serve all of Alameda County and its incorporated jurisdictions, i.e. the cities, except for the city of Alameda, because it is not eligible for CCA service since it has a municipal utility district already. And then the cities of Stockton and Lathrop are waiting in the wings because they will begin service, as I just mentioned, in 2025. And that vertical line on the right-hand side, or the eastern portion of Alameda County, that's the county border between Alameda County and San Joaquin County, where Tracy is located. And I'm sure lots of folks here are familiar with the Altamont Pass, which connects our two counties. And so I won't belabor the point that we are neighboring jurisdictions with a lot of exchange between the two through commuters, people who live and work on different sides of the county border, going across there all the time, waving hello to the Scott Haggerty Wind Energy Center as they go by. Next slide, please.
Alex, have you done that? Waved at the wind center? Is that something you've done in the past?
Every time I go by, I mean, those windmills are waving at me, so I just have to be polite and wave back. I don't think I'll belabor this slide too long. Just suffice it to say that the Alameda County Board of Supervisors has taken action and approved their resolution and ordinance to join our agency prospectively, as well as signed the JPA agreement. So the county has fulfilled all the requirements that are needed for it to join the agency. The next step would be for our board of directors to approve their membership. Next slide, please. Again, laying out the timeline, I think I've already kind of gone over this, but should the board of directors approve San Joaquin County's JPA membership request, the county would begin service, we would begin service to the county in most likely the spring of 2026. But again, the actual implementation of enrollments in the county could be phased. So they could begin as early as January with, for example, with commercial accounts, and then phase in the spring residential and agricultural accounts later in the year. It also doesn't have to all be in 2026. 2026 is just the earliest that it could begin. Next slide, please. Some background info on San Joaquin County. Again, this is all in the staff report and available for folks to read. The red jurisdictions there are those jurisdictions that have already joined our agency. And the unincorporated areas are all of what's not red, all of what's white, and is not, not in gray or in any other sort of border. Those are all the unincorporated areas, and that's what the County Board of Supervisors has jurisdiction over, and that's where we'd be serving should the board approve their membership. Next slide, please. Our staff has done analyses on what the cost implications would be to serve the additional load that the unincorporated county would represent. And so a lot of the analysis has to do with quantitative considerations, such as how much energy would we be talking about, what the peak energy is, how this would change our load profile, that sort of thing, what it would do to our net revenues, net position, that sort of thing. But I want to remind folks about the qualitative considerations that are important here too. And as a mission-driven agency, our board will be considering how the inclusion of San Joaquin County in the service to its energy customers there would help advance and accelerate some of the purposes that are mentioned in our JPA. So these are expressly provided in the recitals of our JPA, things like expanding access to competitively priced renewable energy, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, of course, providing lower rates than PG&E, catalyzing local development and providing innovative programs, advancing environmental justice, those sorts of things. And there's also a lot of strategic opportunities that are that kind of correspond to advancing those parts of our mission. And those include the economies of scale that can be gained with welcoming more customers into our service area. Also, there's the advantage of having a broader political network for some of those policy considerations that we were just discussing about the last item. There's also programs that could be directed towards the agricultural sector, since San Joaquin County has a very robust agricultural economy there. There's also a lot of transportation corridors that go through the county, highways and interstate highways there that could help with our efforts to electrify the transportation system in California. And of course, expanding stakeholder engagement to some of the historically more marginalized communities. Historically, the Central Valley hasn't been served by CCA in the way that the coastal communities have. But actually, for those who are aware, that one of the first attempts at CCA in California was in the San Joaquin Valley. Sadly, it never got off the ground due to a variety of factors, including opposition by the incumbent utility, and then of course the Great Recession in 2008. So it's also somewhat poetic to be having the Central Valley now seeking membership and access to community choice aggregation. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, it's a highly agricultural economy in the San Joaquin Valley and in San Joaquin County. And so there's a fair bit of load that reflects that. It would actually dramatically increase the amount of agricultural load that we serve. Still a relatively small percentage of our overall load, but more than what we currently serve. And the San Joaquin County unincorporated has a pretty high load, a pretty large load. By number of accounts, it's about the same size as Hayward, but by its load, it's about the same size as the city of Stockton. So it would be one of the larger members if it were to be welcomed into the JPA. As far as the analysis goes that have been conducted, the analyses, these were the assumptions that went into the analyses are there at the bottom. It assumes an opt-out rate of about 7%, which is slightly above our current average. We apply 2025 rates from this most recent budget cycle, so 2024, 2025 rates. And we excluded loads that are ineligible. There are a lot of irrigation districts in San Joaquin County that aren't eligible for CCA service, just like municipal utilities aren't. So all of that was factored in. And this was all based on 2023 load data, which was the most recent available. Next slide, please. I won't belabor this slide. This just lays out, the details of the types of accounts and the load, the numbers of accounts that we currently serve, and that the unincorporated area serves. And so what the combined load and combined account profile would be if the unincorporated area were to be served by AVA. And this slide is really mostly here for a reference, so we can return to it as needed. Next slide, please. Thank you, Adrian. Again, this is more here for reference, just the daily load profile, both of our current service area and then also including Stockton, Lathrop, and the unincorporated areas. Next slide, please. Similarly, this is our hourly load profile. Again, we can return to these if and when needed. And they're mostly just there for reference. Next slide, please. Okay, I want to take a minute on this slide to try to walk us through this. So similar to what was discussed with regard to Fremont, we're currently in a time of historically high prices for wholesale renewable energy. So the first column, column A, this assesses how including and serving San Joaquin County, the unincorporated areas, how that would affect our agency's net position and net revenues on an average year. If we were to apply our current energy supply portfolio, and so it would be about an increase the net position by a little less than 8%. But we're not in an average year; we're in an above average year in terms of costs. So when we factor in different variables on what those costs could be on the high end and on the low end, it actually means that to serve the unincorporated areas would cost the agency money in 2026 and in the first year. Now, over time, we expect that it would become closer towards the average, but in the short term, it would cost the agency money to serve such a large load. I also should point out that all of these numbers are if we were to serve the county for an entire year, so all of 2026 from start to finish. And of course, we could phase the enrollment. So this is really just illustrative. If we phase the enrollment, it could bring down the costs so that it might not have such as dramatic an impact on the net position. But I'm guessing there are going to be more questions about this slide. So for now, I want to pause there and move on, and we can return to this with the questions that I'm sure that we'll bring up. Thank you, Adrian. So the staff recommendation is to extend JPA membership to San Joaquin County, and then also to authorize staff to update our implementation plan. The implementation plan is a document that we have to submit for certification to the CPUC. Then once that plan is certified, the CPUC has 90 days to certify the implementation plan. And then once that's certified, then the county would become an official member. And then it would be a year before we could begin service in 2026. In the course of that time, we could do the initial outreach and preparing to serve the unincorporated load. So to procuring energy for that, doing the outreach, and laying out the implementation for that, and in phases should that be the case. So that would be the recommendation of staff to our board, again, to authorize the county's membership and authorize staff to update the implementation plan to reflect the county's membership and preparations to begin serving the county in 2026. And that, I believe, is the end of the slides. So I imagine that there are questions, and I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Thank you, Alex. Just to emphasize, net position is like the positive, negative position of having more revenue for AVA. Is that right? Like the
Right.
previous slide shows that the high PR costs will be at a 20.7 positive, net income for that year per se, or versus when there's low PR costs, it's when we would have higher profitability or better net position in those.
Yeah,
years.
yes, and excuse me, and PR is power resources, just so everyone's clear.
That was my follow-up question. Okay, thank you. With that, I will take our members online at the moment. So we're rotating. So Member Stevenson.
Hi, thank you. Just a quick question. It seems like in the map you had presented and in others I've seen that CCAs tend to break down typically along county lines. Why is it that AVA is serving Tracy and other San Joaquin County cities, and then what's driving the expansion of AVA eastwards versus Central Valley counties setting up their own CCA?
Yeah, great question. Setting up and launching a CCA entails risk. And as I mentioned before, the first attempt in the Central Valley was unsuccessful. So the city of Tracy has, the city of Tracy being right there on the county border, I think started to learn about what was going on just across the county line and was interested in having more options than they currently had at the time. And this has often been the case with expansion of CCAs. It was similar with Marin Clean Energy, where the city of Richmond was the first to join them right across the bay. And so even though counties are often sometimes the leader in terms of acting first, every jurisdiction gets to make its own determination. So incorporated jurisdictions, i.e. cities, they get to decide whether they want to form or join a CCA, just as the county does. And in the case of San Joaquin County, Tracy was the first to act and the first to seek membership with AVA. Good ideas are contagious. And so it wasn't long before folks in Stockton and in Lathrop were interested in exploring that possibility as well. And these are slow moving decisions. The unincorporated county and the County Board of Supervisors has really been exploring this possibility for about 2 years. So the city of Stockton, when it was contemplating CCA, it actually evaluated the possibility of launching its own CCA and determined that the costs and the benefits were such that it would be better to join an operational CCA than to try to start one from scratch. So I hope I'm addressing the question there.
You absolutely are. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Member Lakshman.
So in the slide number 3 or 4, you showed some timeline. Is it still valid, or where do we stand in that timeline?
So there was the timeline with the sun on it. So there's the timeline that I think, I'm not sure what number slide it was, but we are currently at the point of where our board is now presented with the opportunity to consider the membership of San Joaquin County. So the County Board of Supervisors has evaluated the prospect of joining the agency and passed the necessary items to do so. And now it's up to our board and then of course our staff has conducted analyses. And then the next step is for our board to consider whether to welcome the unincorporated county into our joint powers authority. And then should they approve their membership, then the next steps would be for staff to update the implementation plan. And then the initial community outreach would begin next year. And then the service could begin as early as 2026.
Okay, thank you. And the Mountain House was marked as TBD. Is it one of the gray areas that you were showing in the map?
Yes, and Mountain House did just recently incorporate. I think it's the newest and youngest city in
Cities.
the state of California. I think this was literally, I think this was within the last week or two that the
Okay.
unincorporated community of Mountain House has now become the city of Mountain House.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Member Harper from San Joaquin County, residing in Stockton, California.
Hi all, thank you. I'm very excited to see this item on the agenda that CCA is continuing to expand into the Central Valley. Just to highlight, I think from this side of the hill, this is a great opportunity to support areas that have historically borne the brunt of industrial pollution around the Port of Stockton, which I really think can benefit from a more kind of progressive, innovative energy utility partner to help navigate the transition to cleaner energy sources. There are also a lot of pockets within the city of Stockton boundaries that are technically county proper. So having one default energy provider between cities there, I think could go a long way for developing local programs to help, like I said, transition away from fossil sources, but also for initial outreach, engagement, education efforts.
Member Harper, you have a clarifying question? Are you excited to join officially the county?
Oh, I was just, is this only clarifying? You want me to?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll look to you for the motion, if that's okay. If there was a motion, so will. But let's go to clarifying questions. I'll come back to you to the motion if it's such a will. Thank you,
Got
member.
it. Come on back to me later then.
All right.
I was excited and wanted to
to
share some background.
Yeah, no, thank you. But that's Alex's job. You're taking it away from him.
I love to share it.
That's good. I'll look to the room for other member comments. Clarifying questions. I'll look to member Balkasoon and then member Litz.
In the table, I guess it's the quantitative analysis base case. It's a different format than the one we use for Fremont. So I just was wondering, you did an analysis of like how much it would cost? Would this add to the additional R100 folks as well?
So the expectation would be, which is similar to other jurisdictions, is that the initial enrollment would be on Bright Choice. So this would not be, the expectation would not be to be defaulting to Renewable 100.
If they were to opt up, just to clarify, if I may, there'll be another conversation about opting up the whole county of Stockton, correct? Alex? If they were going to opt up at some point, that'd be another conversation.
Yes, if the city of Stockton or anywhere else wanted to default to Renewable 100, then that would be its own action.
Thank you. Unless you have anything else, member? Okay.
Couple of questions. One real basic is, when is AVA going to stop expanding? What are our intended limits?
Do we need to stop?
I think so. We don't have an explicit policy on the inclusion of new communities or the expansion of the service area. I think there's been general consensus in an informal way among CCAs that serving contiguous borders within a county, to the extent that that's possible, is of benefit. In part for some of the reasons that Member Harper mentioned before, that some of the cities aren't contiguous, and so there are unincorporated pockets within incorporated jurisdictions. And so that can lead to a whole lot of customer confusions if people on one side of the street are served by one provider or have options that others don't have. So generally speaking, it would make sense to kind of fill in those areas if that's the will of the elected leaders there and the communities there. So I don't expect that there's a whole lot of expectation to be expanding further, but I don't want to get ahead of the board on what could be possible in the future. I know that Ava, like other CCAs, has a vested interest in encouraging community choice energy statewide, and for communities that don't have choices to gain them. It's a very collaborative community among the CCAs, both with Cal CCA, but in general, CCAs like to help one another. And I can tell you that we've received inquiries from other jurisdictions that were interested in exploring membership, and we've encouraged them to talk to their neighboring CCA. And that has often been the case in other CCAs as well. We're not trying to compete with one another. Oftentimes, if there's a jurisdiction within a county that's already being served by a CCA, deference is given to that CCA if other jurisdictions in that county want to explore membership. So, Member Lutz, I don't have a definitive answer for you because I wouldn't want to get ahead on the board on what the limits would be, but I can just speak generally that I don't think that there's much of an expectation to be growing infinitely, just where it makes sense from the perspective of advancing our mission and serving communities that don't have a choice and that have a vested interest in having more competitive rates and a more renewable energy supply.
Are there any other jurisdictions currently in discussion to join AVA?
To join AVA? No, I would only say that the city of Manteca is the only jurisdiction in San Joaquin County that is really eligible for service. I guess Mountain House, now that's an incorporated, maybe could be, but I think that there's already a municipal utility there, an irrigation district there. So no, and I've only had initial contact with the city of Manteca with their vice mayor reaching out initially to ask a few questions. So no, right now there's no active jurisdiction waiting, and the only city that's really eligible is Manteca. The rest of the other eligible jurisdictions have already joined us, or they're served by an irrigation district and aren't eligible.
Okay, I'll go to Member Pacheco and Member Weiner 1 second, but I saw Member Harper hand up. Do you have a clarifying question or comment, Member Harper?
Yes, quick question. So would AVA potentially be making a director seat or community advisory seat available for San Joaquin County within the coming year, should the staff recommendation be approved, or is that unknown?
Yes, great question. So the precedent has been when a new jurisdiction is approved for membership, once their membership is certified by the Public Utilities Commission, they are entitled to a seat on the board. And to the CAC for that matter.
Got it. Thank you.
And Alex, although there is a proportional voting per entity load, normally it's just one vote unless they need to go in another direction with the board. Is that correct? On the board, there's a proportionate voting, but normally you just have one vote per member, generally speaking.
Yes. So
I've been around too long. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, thank you, Chair Hernandez. I know you're aware of these details, having been served on the board. So there is a provision in the Joint Powers Agreement that has, correct me if I'm wrong, Chair Hernandez, I don't think it's ever been used. There's a provision for, I guess you could call it a weighted vote, but it's a proportional vote. But it can only be used as an appeals process. So according to the JPA, all votes are one jurisdiction, one vote. But if there is an affirmative vote for something and 3 jurisdictions want to redo, then that redo is proportional based on load. But again, that's has not occurred since the agency has been operational.
Thank you. Let's see, Member Pacheco was next.
Alex, this may be kind of, I need to talk out this question, so I don't have it figured out in my head. But first of all, I will say it would be awful cool to have King County join us, the original county that was trying to be a CCA. Since, but this is interesting. This is one of the many problems we have, where problems that we never thought we'd actually really run into, we are running into because of the success of us existing and prospering. back when we were forming this, when we were thinking about how far would we expand, and you know, how we knew we wanted to be an example to the state and to the country about what you can do. And even at that time, we were having conversations which were totally just like BS conversations about expanding into the Central Valley and what that would do to change our character and how we operate as an agency. And with San Joaquin coming in to be what would currently be 10% of our load, the fourth largest partner, and with them having actual room for expansion, they will become the second or third largest partner in this agency if they come in, because they can build millions of units out there. I'm interested, when we invited and accepted Stockton in, it kind of made sense. Number one, to kind of propagate the Central Valley, just to show the Central Valley what you could do. But going into unincorporated San Joaquin, I'm concerned about the ag interest, I'll be blunt, and the supervisors and the city supervisors that represent ag interests, changing some characters about us, like things like arguing for like dairy or cattle, biodigesters being included into our mix and whatnot. I guess my question is, do you see any practical benefits that accepting them in and them being a member of our agency, where we can actually do some local development on some of that brown ag land or whatnot? Or are there any guardrails we can create to make sure things like some bad anti-climate ag false solutions for our renewable energies portfolio come in? I know that was just like a whole bunch of words. I was figuring it out as I was saying it. So good luck answering that, I guess.
Well, I would say that I think that the opportunities to extend meaningful renewable energy options to electricity customers in unincorporated San Joaquin County is not to be overlooked. And the opportunities to electrify the transportation corridors, to develop more local renewable generating capacity. You know, I think the guardrails are really the board itself. You know, the board gets to discuss and consider a whole host of challenging topics, and the opportunity, especially with the ag sector, I think is really important to focus on, because I think a lot of people here are probably aware, since we have a lot of energy experts in the room here, that moving water, pumping water, is one of the major energy draws in the state of California. It's like the #1 energy draw. And so all the emissions that are related to that, the opportunity to decarbonize the agricultural related emissions when it comes to the energy usage is quite important to address climate change and also local air quality issues. So, there might be some risk in that there are maybe different interests in different areas, but honestly, Alameda County itself, I was born and raised here, and Alameda County, one of the things that makes it beautiful is how diverse it is, demographically, but also in terms of the policy ideas. I mean, the difference in policy positions between what's in the Tri-Valley and what's in, Oakland and Berkeley and Albany are quite broad. You kind of span the political and policy gamut right there. So if you're asking me personally, Member Pacheco, I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to get to broaden the tent a little bit and have those diverse opinions in engaging with one another, and the opportunity that to help decarbonize and kind of accelerate the whole state in decarbonizing, especially in the ag industry, which is so important to our state. I think that's a wonderful opportunity that the board really is lucky to be able to entertain. That's my long-winded answer.
That was a pretty good freestyle answer to a messy question that doesn't really have an answer. So thank you, Alex.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Member Weiner.
Alex, I was going to ask some of the same questions that Member Pacheco did on the political side, but instead I'll ask you a different question about your emphasis in the slides on how much of energy in San Joaquin County is related to ag. You emphasized that a few times. My question to you is, why is that important to the membership in AVA? in terms of broadening our base or anything else? Does it mean, is it a different kind of energy they need at different times of day? Why is it good for us?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a variety of reasons, but those that you just mentioned are spot on. Yeah, they tend to have a different load profile. There are ways in which you can pair that load profile with solar, and in fact, Valley Clean Energy out of Davis has kind of pioneered an ag fit, a feed-in tariff, if you will permit me the parlance, that a feed-in tariff that's designed just for agricultural customers. So that that you can pair the solar with the pumping, you know, and so it's almost like a demand response program in certain ways. And also because, yeah, there's a lot of expanse out there, and there may be areas, whether it's above some of the canals or on some of the ag land itself, that's kind of that's not in its best shape and could be put to a different use, such as solar or wind. But also for the reasons I mentioned before, that agriculture represents a lot of greenhouse gas emissions too, because of all the energy that's used for pumping water, and also kind of the mechanical equipment that's used too. You know, electrifying some of that, you know, the forklifts and the tractors and all those things that kind of would maybe run on propane or diesel, electrifying those represents a real opportunity in terms of local pollution and greenhouse gas emissions.
Well, when you electrify the cattle emission of methane, then we can do something.
Well, yeah. Methane is its own, yeah. Cattle is something different.
Thank you very much. Thank you, member. Thank you, other member comments. I look now to the public for comments regarding this proposal. I'd like to see members in the room. Please, Brendan.
Yeah, Brendan Pittman again from Berkeley. Thank you for that.
And if you did 3 minutes, great. If not,
I'm going to keep it brief here.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Understanding you guys have another item to go to. Yeah, I just want to commend the presentation. That was really easy to follow as a member of the public. I'm still a little iffy on the table. I'm sure there's going to be more discussion on that. I just didn't really understand the costs. But yeah, I'm glad that the ag portion came up, and the accounts versus the percentage of load was in the presentation and the slides. That was easy to follow. And I think that's really important as a different type of load profile, and how kind of peaky the summer is for some of these Central Valley communities with AC, with agriculture, with pumping. And then I just like to say, you know, for agriculture information and the data there, you know, like what are the trends long term? What are the realistic initiatives that are happening to electrify some of these industries, agricultural equipment, and how that fits in with long-term planning for AVA. I know that's kind of getting the cart before the horse a little bit, but I think that's important to think about with these different load profiles. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any online comments?
There are no hands raised this time.
Thank you. Any other member comments from the room? Member Lutz.
This is.
You gotta stay close to the mic, please.
Yeah, Jim Lutz again. Will this have any impact on our PCIA? And will it have, what would be the impact on everything AVA gets is a loss to PG&E's existing load. So it seems like it might have some impact on the PCIA, and it might actually have some impact on Diablo Canyon's load if PG&E is no longer serving this load. And I don't know if anybody at AVA has considered those impacts.
So if I may, Chair, so PCIA vintages are assigned to customers at the time of when they leave PG&E service. So should unincorporated San Joaquin County begin service with AVA in 2026, customers there would be assigned a PCIA vintage of like 2025. So it wouldn't affect the PCIA vintages for customers that are already served. But the customers in those areas, those new customers would be assigned their PCIA. They don't currently pay a PCIA because they're currently with PG&E.
Right. Any other comments, members? Mr. Harper, Member Harper, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I would like to make a motion to approve the recommendation made by staff here to incorporate San Joaquin County and update AVA's implementation plan. And I'll just add to that. Let that be the motion alone, understanding that there's additional analysis coming around the phasing of different sectors potentially or customer classes. Yeah, thank you for the presentation.
All right, thank you, Member Harper. I will second that motion. Any other comments or clarification on the motion? So taking staff recommendation on item 1 and 2. With that, we can take a roll call vote.
Great, thank you very much. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Balkasoon,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan, Member Lakshman,
Yes.
Member Pacheco,
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Perfect. Congratulations. I'll carry that recommendation forward to the board on Wednesday. Thank you. We'll look to the last item, item C7, e-bike program implementation. It is another board action to approve and execute a contract with APTIM. Who's on? Oh, that's you. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes. As Adrian's pulling up the slides, thanks for having me.
I thought you were leaving the room when I saw you stand up, like I'm out, like no, it's your time to go. Please introduce yourself one more time for the.
Yes. Hi everyone, my name is Brett Wiley. I manage the electric mobility initiatives for AVA, and I will be presenting tonight on AVA Bike Electric Program Implementation Contract with Aptim. I'll talk about the program overview, why we selected Aptim, and our roadmap to launching this program. Next slide. So the big takeaway here is that we reissued a solicitation for this program in March of 2024 after we had to cancel the contract with our previous vendor due to their poor performance. That was done before the program eventually launched. And after, with that RFP and a very highly competitive bidding process, that came out of that RFP, we are selecting a market-leading firm, Aptim, who has a strong specialty in e-bikes. And so pending board approval on Wednesday, we're going to be leveraging the work we've done to date on this program, which was through last fall and to early this year, and all the lessons learned from what didn't work well with that prior vendor for a more informed launch with a planned launch in December of 2024. More. Here's the large program overview. Kind of at the very top, AVA is really interested in electrifying transportation and decarbonizing transportation. And we're doing that through a lot of initiatives, including our DC fast charging network. But we also know that decarbonizing transportation does not necessarily always mean adding vehicles to the road. So one of pure component of this initiative is actually mode shifting people away from vehicles and into clean and active transportation through electric bikes. We're wanting to not only increase this mode of transportation throughout our service area, but also make it safe and affordable, and give people real hands-on experiences with electric bikes, given that it's such a new technology. There's not a lot of people who are currently e-biking, even if there's a high demand and interest for it. We're also going to be partnering with peer programs in our member jurisdictions. There's at least 3 of our member jurisdictions that have e-bike programs of one kind or another, and also the state of California. I should note that this program is an investment of $10 million, and I'll get to in a second of how that breaks down. But if you compare this to the state of California's program, that is also $10 million. So this program, an investment by AVA and the Alameda County Transportation Commission, is on par with the largest program in the United States. And we're focusing it on our core service area. We're also focusing it on not just all of our customers, but residents of Alameda County. And that's because we're partnering with the Alameda County Transportation Commission. They are contributing $4 million of the total $10 million program budget. That grant from ACTC was already board approved prior to the last contract getting signed. And sort of a contingent component of that grant is that we have to serve all of Alameda County residents, not just AVA customers. But we have a very low opt-out rate in Alameda County, so naturally we're going to serve a lot of customers regardless. You can look at the enrollment goals there. We expect through this program, which will go through the end of 2026, we'll get around 8,000 new e-bikes on the road with our CARE and FARA customers, our income qualified customers, getting access to a safety equipment voucher that would add the ability for them at point of purchase to also get a helmet, lights, and a lock. And then if we do move forward with the e-bike lending session, we would expect a little over close to 5,700 e-bike lending sessions as a try before you buy experience for people that may be on the fence or may not be initially primed to get an e-bike, to get that first experience to then move forward. This program is for all of our eligible customers. It'll be for anyone 18 years or older. Requirements of the program is no more than one incentive per person, no more than 2 per household. And so while all of our customers or Alameda County residents are eligible, we will be making this program very equity centered. So at least 40% of the program benefits will be going to our income qualified participants. And not only will we be bucketing those incentives and benefits out from the rest of our customers to make sure that those are actually being distributed to those eligible participants, but our program will have an e-bike incentive for those income qualified participants that's $500 higher than those that are not income qualified. And again, with that e-bike safety equipment voucher, that's an additional $100 available for income qualified participants to get a bike or to get a helmet, a lock, or lights. As mentioned, the target launch date is December 2024, and the budget is roughly split 80% towards the e-bike incentives program and 20% for the lending program. The money allocated below has already been board approved. $6 million of the local development budget would be invested in this program. That was already board approved in $2 million allocation allotments in fiscal years 22, 23, and more recently, fiscal year 24 budget. And same with the $4 million grant from Alameda County Transportation Commission. So here's some of the higher level program priorities. Not only will this be one of the largest e-bike programs in the country, but this will be the largest residential program AVA will be launching to date since our inception. So we will be doing a fully AVA branded marketing campaign that will spread AVA's awareness to our customers. And as mentioned early in the meeting, maybe a lot of customers don't know that they are our customers. After this program, they certainly will. E-bike programs across the country have been very popular with very high demands, particularly among those who are primed, and it gets people's attention. People are interested in this work. One thing that we will be doing to ensure that it's not just those who are primed to participate are threefold. One, we are going to be doing a dedicated marketing campaign, and really most of our marketing will be for our income qualified participants. Those who are already primed to participate will hear about it through existing channels, but we're really going to be reaching into some new channels and new avenues to reach those who would otherwise not participate. The voucher that we will be disseminating will be universal. So this is a voucher that can be used at any of our local bike shops throughout our service area, which is another really core component of this program. All of the money put towards incentives in this program will go to local bike shops in our service area. That's local direct business investment, especially small business investment throughout our service area. Not only will those vouchers be universal, but we will be having a randomized selection mechanism to disperse, to select people to then get those incentives. So you might be familiar with first come, first serve. That can be a really inequitable way to distribute funds because it's the fastest click in the West. And a lot of people don't have the privilege to be sitting in a computer to click a button right at, say, 5 p.m. or noon. And so this program, we will have a window for applications on a monthly basis, and then we will be randomly selecting people who apply. We will have one selection for Carafera as a means to reach that at least 40% threshold, and then a selection for everyone else. And as mentioned, that Carafera benefit, at least 40% of those benefits will be going to those customers based on the way the program is designed. We are partnering with a lot of local organizations, including BART, Bike East Bay, Alameda County Transportation Commission, and others, to ensure that this mode shift of people from vehicles to bikes is not just for clean active transportation, but also for public transportation, connecting the networks where people can and cannot go through one mode and make them stronger together. And the last piece is around e-bike lending. We have a strong thesis that there are a lot of people who could be interested in this program, but they need an experience to really understand if an e-bike could benefit them. Based on AVA staff capacity and customer need, we would launch this e-bike lending component at some point. We're going to reassess that in early 2025. If we end up not executing on the lending program, that entire allocation, funding allocation for lending will go right back into incentives. So the $10 million budget is expected to be spent entirely by the end of 2026. And if we're lucky and there's additional interest from the community and the CAC and the board, we'll happily be back here earlier than that to request additional funds based on the popularity of the program. And one more. Okay, so this competitive solicitation. Again, we launched the RFP in March of 2024. We received 8 bids, and 5 of them were conforming, meant they met the entire criteria of the solicitation. It's worth noting that none of those 8 bidders applied to our initial solicitation in fall of 2022. So we had not just a competitive bid, but a whole new round of potential bidders to survey. The evaluations of how we looked at these proposals are listed up there. A lot of those are built from our original solicitation and also built from the learnings of what didn't work with our prior vendor. And then our recommendation to the board is to select Aptim as our program implementer. And again, that contract is through 2026. So why Aptim? They are the leading vendor for e-bike program implementation. They launched and managed 3 of the top programs in the United States, including the City of Denver's program, which in the e-bike world is more of the North Star in the United States around not just successful implementation, but how it's been implemented. Aptim has processed over 20,000 e-bike incentive and equipment vouchers, and totaling over $15 million of incentives redeemed by those participants. In their proposal, they had very clear program staffing, including having 2 staff, a manager and a coordinator, be 100% dedicated full-time to this program through its entire duration. Really important piece of how we view in local development proposals and what we're delivering to the community is performance-based. So 98% of this contract's value, 98% of the $10 million is based on impact delivered for participants directly. So how does that break down? Incentives are $8.7 million. The admin fee to Aptim is $1.3 million. Of that, 84% is performance-based on the incentives redeemed by participants. So it's not just incentives that are given out, it's actually that they have to be redeemed. And again, they have to make sure that at least 40% of those incentives are being redeemed by our Care and Fair customers. They have a full demo of existing technology and a platform for e-bike shops that neatly aligns with our program design already. This isn't a new build. This is something that's out of the box that can be customized for us, but it's ready to go. And they also have a really 15-day net payment window to local bike shops, which is really helpful. A lot of local businesses struggle with programs like this because there's potentially long delay times between when they give out incentives to customers and when they get reimbursed. Industry standard is around 30 days, and they do it in 15. And again, the lending proposal we talked about would leverage existing retailers in our service areas lending services. And a big thing for contracting and our legal team, they have no changes to our standard consulting agreement. So our requested action is to authorize the CEO to negotiate and execute the provided agreement and the final scope with Aptum. And again, the financial impact is $6 million to AVA, but that was previously approved through the 3 prior years local development budget, and also had been approved the additional $4 million grant from Alameda County Transportation Commission. That's all we have for you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Brett. We'll take questions from the room. Yes, Member Lutz, Member Landry, Member Pacheco, and then Member Bakusun. Please.
I have a whole bunch of questions.
Whoa, well, we don't want to be here all day, so all night. So hopefully we can consolidate and evaluate the top 2 or 3.
And I'll do one and then.
Okay, thank you.
So, try to do them in a order of priority. So, how does this look like for a Care and Fair customer? How do they find out about it? What's their journey through the process of getting an e-bike? What are the steps?
Yeah, so we have developed a customer journey for our participants. We're currently working on a marketing plan that would detail the channels we would more likely and more deeply reach Care and Fair customers than everyone else. But the process will be quite similar for any customer. They would go to our website and apply on our application. If they are deemed eligible, they would get added to a monthly randomized selection of incentives. For those that are Care and Fair, their allocations would be listed separately than the rest of our customers. So those incentives are more guaranteed. We're doing that because the assumption is that we're going to have more people who are not income qualified primed for this program. And by including them all in the same bucket, it's going to dilute the likelihood that Care and Fair participants get selected in the program. And then once they're selected, any participant who's selected for an incentive, they're either selected, in which case they have 60 days to redeem their voucher at eligible local bike shops. If they're not selected, they're automatically re-enrolled into the selection for a 2nd or 3rd month. If they're not selected after that 3rd month, they can reapply to the program.
Right. Will there be, that's assuming people will sign in on the web, and are you going to have other languages besides English? Spanish?
Yes, so we will have
Chinese,
English.
Vietnamese.
We'll have English, Spanish,
Sure.
and simplified Chinese. Okay. And we will have an online application. Again, we're keeping it open. The application window isn't like immediate. You know, there's going to be some time in there. So if people need to get to a library or other means to do that, they can do that. but it will be really important for people to apply through the online application because it will auto verify if they're actually eligible. And that's not possible to do in a written application.
So they'll need their utility bill.
No, actually, because we have all of their data, as long as they put in their name and address, we can auto verify them on the back end, which is how we're going to be leveraging our data and analytics team, the sophistication we have with how we manage our data.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, I've got a whole set of them.
We'll
but
come back to it.
I'll let other
All
people
right,
take a
perfect.
turn first.
Okay, so who was second? Member Landry?
Yes. Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to ask, and I see there's some reference to it, but I do want to ask access for individuals who may have mobility challenges.
Yep.
And including older adults and seniors.
Yeah, great question. So in our program, the eligible bikes are, you can think of them as standard bikes, cargo bikes, which are either front buckets or back seats, and adaptive bikes. Adaptive bikes are those that, e-bikes that are adapted for people with physical handicaps or mobility issues. And we have 2 tiers of incentives. So we have a standard incentive of $400 if
No. No.
we have a standard incentive of $400 for the standard bikes. It's a $900 incentive if it's a cargo or an adaptive e-bike. And then if you're Carafera, you add $500 on top of each of those. So we are making sure that, we're inclusive of anyone who would want to be getting onto an e-bike. And our program, there's a lot that I couldn't mention in a brief presentation, but we're working closely with our local community partners like Bike East Bay and Walk Bike Alameda to include a lot of educational content around different e-bikes, different community rides and workshops to attend to make sure that people not only before the program know about them, but after they participate can connect with local resources to ride safely and also to ride in community.
Thank you.
Member Alcosun, was it?
This is probably just an obvious question, but I've read a lot about how women don't like to bike. They're more afraid than men because of the cars and stuff. And I just wonder if there's a focus at all to getting women to bike. I know, I love e-bikes. I'm so totally excited that they built this program.
Yeah, that is data that we have. So you're not, you're correct. I don't necessarily know all of the reasons for that. I think there's certainly plenty of reasons why there's gender differences in biking. But it is something that it's listed in our staff report, actually, the disparities between different groups that bike and do not, particularly in the Bay Area. And we are incorporating those disparities and trying to close gaps, not just around sex, but also race and income levels as well.
So you're going to make sure that different people, that like not all men get the bikes, for example, or there's like a certain number that.
We're not doing bucketed allocations beyond income qualified and not, but we are going to be having marketing, and the marketing channels that we go into the goal is to bring in people who typically are not feeling either included or welcomed into biking spaces.
Thank you. Member Pacheco.
Okay, a comment and 2 questions. I just have to say that this actually sounds like a decent program, though I have some questions. It's a long-standing thing where I dislike seeing the LDBP used for transportation issues. When we conceived of LDBP, it was for new resources and energy efficiency in their service territory. I personally believe that the city and the county need to figure out, and transportation is our #1 emission. We all know that, but I believe the cities and the county are using our agency to do something that they're supposed to be doing on their own. So, but that said, we're doing this. I'm curious, so like when you talk about the mode shift, this is only like 5,700 bikes, so it's not that big, but is this taking people who would be taking the bus, or is this, what does the data show on other programs like in Denver and whatnot? Are we simply getting people off of public transportation, which is actually desperately needs more riders? Or are we taking people out of cars? Or, so number one, if you could speak on that. And secondly, when you say 3 top programs, does that just mean the largest, or does that mean the most successful? And if so, what are the metrics? Like, kind of the first thing. And the last thing is Transform, the organization Transform, someone you're working with, or are they in support of this program?
Yeah, great questions. So I don't have any data at my fingertips around how other e-bike programs are shifting modes, and if it's pulling people out of public transit and just getting them to ride otherwise. We are working very closely with BART and demonstrating the connectivity between people who can bike and then use public transit. They have an entire biking public transit team, so we're working very closely with them. We will be looking through pre and post surveys on modes that people take prior to the program and after the program. And we will also be studying the VMT data in our service area on the program's effect annually, but also at the end of the program on those 8,000 participants to really understand if there's meaningful vehicle miles traveled shifted. I think that's going to be where the rubber really meets the road. And yeah, so we'll try to find more data on how it brings out other people in modes. But one of the things that I can anecdotally say from a lot of these other programs that work with public transit entities, something that we're talking with BART, is there are a lot of surface parking lots in our service area at BART stations. And a lot of people use those stations. BART has done studies of those drivers. Most of those drivers drive from 2 miles from their home to the BART parking lot. Those folks are primed e-bike riders, especially if they can bring their e-bikes on BART or have a safe place to lock them. So one example of how are we going to sort of smartly target our marketing is that, for example, we will be working with BART to try to engage the people who use surface parking lots at those BART stations. And so that directly would bring people out of those short 2-mile daily trips into more regular e-biking.
So that's interesting. That, yes, I can see under that actually getting an increase in BART ridership among the people in this program. I'm sounding by omission, you're not talking AC transit, which actually I think would probably be the people that would be using e-bikes would be more likely to use AC transit than BART generally, but you're not talking AC transit?
We have been in touch with them.
Okay.
Yeah, but not as directly as with BART, but yeah,
And
we
then,
will.
so I'm interested to hear more about the more data you have about the
Yeah.
mode shift. And then the last question.
Yeah,
was
your
about
other
Transform.
questions. Yeah. So top 3 programs, I want to make sure I'm not skipping that one. They are the top program in the country, City of Denver. And then the other 2 programs aren't necessarily, the most in terms of number of dollars, but they're really quite reputable. State of Colorado is the largest statewide incentive program. They Apton managed that one. And then City of Boulder is a relatively small program compared to those other 2, but has been successfully implemented, and they're getting their contract renewed in that program. And then working with Transform is in our CBO cohort that we've engaged with on this program. They're not contracted in this program, but we are in touch with them and working with them.
They've been generally supportive of this program?
They have been generally supportive of this program. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
I believe Member Lakshman online.
Yeah, so question is regarding the Care for customers. Do they, or in general also, do they get does the voucher cover the entire cost of the e-bike, or is it partial, or how does it work?
Yeah, so we'll have a very large qualified product list across the eligible bike models and types, and they will range from entry level to higher level bikes. I will say that from the qualified product list that we pulled last year, there are a few e-bikes that would meet close to that voucher amount. The goal of the voucher isn't to offset the entire cost of the bike, but if you're looking at the $900 for Carafera customers, if you're looking at the $900 for a standard e-bike or the $1,400 for a cargo or adaptive bike, there are a lot of standard e-bikes that are around the $1,100 to $1,200 mark. And again, we have a few that are in our qualified product list that will be eligible. So we are trying to make sure that we have different price points for different audiences, but also making sure that we have a qualified product list that can serve a lot of different types of needs. Cargo bikes, we're hoping, again, engaging parent groups at schools to try to get them to use those bikes for Safe Routes to Schools programs. And those bikes are a little more expensive, but they also offset higher transportation costs.
So the voucher amount would be based on the income level, and what's the criteria to
Yeah, so
determine that?
the two-tier voucher amount is based on if they're a Carafera customer or not, or equivalent, because we are working with Alameda Municipal Power in their residence in Alameda City. But yes, it would be based on those electricity rate customers.
Thank you.
Any other member comments before we go to public comments? Yes, Member Lutz.
Do you have the performance of the batteries degrade over time? Do you have any recycling plans or requirements, and any plans to make sure that replacement batteries are available and affordable?
Yeah, we have not looked into replacement batteries yet for the program. We are talking with it's not a requirement at this moment for stores to be able to accept and recycle the batteries, but it will be something that when we advertise the bike shops, we will list different qualifiers of those shops, and one of those will be around battery recycling. We are collecting that data, but it's not universal for all of the bike shops in our service area who sell e-bikes. And and we are making sure that a lot of these e-bikes, all the e-bikes in our program will have to pass a very high level standard certification. And those e-bikes are typically the ones that are not having high degradation and high rates of return or failure, the way that a lot of direct-to-consumer online bikes have.
And another question is, I'm thinking of the bike shops I know of that are in the DACs, the disadvantaged communities. They aren't, as far as I know, offering e-bikes. So do you have a list of the bike shops, and are you going to provide any incentives for bike shops that don't have the resources to, to get the e-bikes for somebody to buy?
Yeah, so there are over 40 bike stores in our service area. We're engaged with all of them. A couple things there. One, we're not providing incentives to local bike shops. This program is an incentive and a reinvestment in our local bike shops. And bike stores who know that this program is coming, they have overwhelmingly been supportive, excited, and we're going to be working closely with them, not only on marketing of the program, but also modulating demand so that we're not sending a lot of people to them who necessarily can't handle that high demand. But bike stores that don't carry e-bikes now always have the opportunity through their manufacturing partners to get bikes in. Typically, a local bike shop would carry a stock of bikes based on the local demand in their area. So places where there's no demand right now, they might not carry e-bikes, but we're going to be working with them closely and engaging the residents around their community to increase that demand. And so hopefully this program is incentive enough for them to sort of to join.
Yeah. Is the list of bike shops you're working with, is that, can we see it? Is it public?
We are engaged with every bike shop in our service area. And once we have the qualified bike stores, we're putting that out to the public.
Okay.
But we're not going to release anything preemptively because we haven't even signed the contract with the vendor yet. And they will be working and managing the bike shops directly on contracting in the program. I will say that of the over 40 bike shops we have in the program, again, leveraging the work we've done to date, 22 have already verbally signed on that they're going to be ready to launch with us on day one. So for the other Delta shops, we're going to be working with them and hopefully getting them on the program as well.
I have a couple of things. I think in regards to the deployment of the program and visibility in the community, it'd be nice to see how you partner with bike shops and how AVA engages them for community-based events. Like you have Bike to Anywhere now versus Bike to Work Day. So how are you there at those energizing stations? Do you look to maybe partner with organizations like Safe Route to School and see how they can maybe learn more about e-biking and sort of partnering with those organizations or nonprofits or CBOs and the bike shops throughout the area to make sure that there's access and visibility to the program? We know there's crime is a concern, so a lot of the bike stores probably don't have a lot of inventory. So how do they sort of really leverage it? They're a small entity. How do they deploy capital on credit? Maybe there's a challenge to really move forward with this e-bike program. So I think there's gonna be some complication there, but hopefully staff can work through it. Thank you. With that, if there's any other comments, I would look to a motion to support this program. Oh, thank you very much. Public comment, thank you. Public comment, please, in the room. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate it.
It'll be quick.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation. I think this program is really effective. I think it's a low budget, relatively, and high visibility, high impact program for a sector, transportation, that contributes to 25% or whatever the number is of our energy, right? So I think that falls into the AVA's mission. And again, it's a $4 million grant from Alameda County Transportation Commission. So I think it bolsters this program. And I hope that when this program is successful, because I think this APTIM, I think that is very encouraging with their history, that they'll be able to affect this program successfully. When that happens, that Alameda County Transportation Commission can bolster the budget and the resources to continue this program. I think the 5,000 plus vouchers is huge in the bike community. We're trying to induce demand, to get to that mode shift. And again, I don't think this agency should be, doing, what do we call it, BART and, bus rapid transit. Those are billion-dollar projects, but a $10 million program that can get 5,200 bicycles through with a contract with a vendor that's successful is very, very important. So thank you for that, and good luck.
Thank you. I'll take other public comment.
Yeah, I have to say, I do agree that local development funds should be emphasized into other needs. And I think the one thought that I had about the e-bike program that I assumed was that there'll be some kind of a program similar to having where you have the analog bikes in locations where people frequent and can rent them for the day, versus something that was designed for people to just buy something. And so I'm wondering if there's still room for an idea like that for people who can't afford or can't commit. I personally would benefit from that, But where I live, I don't have the storage for that bike, and I have issues lifting things because of a chronic illness. So just thinking in that vein, like it might be helpful to have a program like that. I think the other things, I think similar to other suggestions I've made, like if you're really targeting a specific community, you really need to build a relationship with the organizations that are working directly with those community members. And thinking about like senior and disability action and organizations like that, or organizations that work with, immigrant communities so that they can be able to make available those demonstrations and lending programs that you've mentioned. And again, I just can't help but think there's people that even a 40% discount is still like, I don't know, 800 or something like that dollars, and disposable income is not everybody's thing, unfortunately. And so, yeah, I think a program where it's not like you have to buy it, but maybe you have access to it and it's a shared program. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. To directly respond to the bike sharing, we did look at setting up lending facilities in phase 1 of our program, and it was a lesson learned. It was going to be operationally very costly for us to set up brick and mortar lending locations compared to leveraging existing resources at local bike shops that do rent out bikes for a week at a time. And we're also one of the organizations we're in touch with is Metropolitan Transportation Commission. They are the funders of the Lyft bikes, the bike share stations. And again, to some other people's point, we don't want to step on toes. We're not a transportation management organization. And something like that, we feel, based on our experience in phase 1 and also talking with MTC, it's better suited for organizations like that to fund transportation management. And those organizations are funding very low to no cost access for income qualified residents. And so if you do know anyone who is income qualified, I recommend checking out the East Bay bike share stations. They can get a membership for low to no cost and use the hundreds of stations that they have across the East Bay. But it is limited to some communities. And I think for those that are interested in expanding that network, I would really recommend talking to MTC about that.
Thank you. I also thought it was going to be more of a lending library too when I had the pre-meeting discussing this item. So I understood the cost impediments of at least in the space, but I think at least we're a path in the right direction to help some more access. But we still have a lot more work to do through the years, and I appreciate the support of this program. With that, I'll take any other comments or a motion to accept this recommendation for board to support
Make
it.
a motion to accept this recommendation.
Thank you, Member Balkasuno. I'll take a second, if any.
I'll second it.
Member Lutz, second. Any comments or dialogue in addition to the motion? All right, with none, I'll see that I'll have a roll call vote, please.
Great, thank you. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Balkasoon.
Yes.
Member Stevenson.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Lochman.
Yes.
Member Pacheco.
Yes.
Member Harper.
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion's affirmed.
With that, I will take any kind of member and staff announcements regarding requests to place items on future CAC agendas. Member Pacheco?
Yes, this overlaps on an older request concerning offshore wind. There will be within the next couple of days, the CPUC will be releasing its draft recommendations for the centralized procurement of specified long lead time resources. And that will be, part of that is about what is going to be the offshore wind procurement amount for Department of Water, the DWR, with the idea that that's what's going to help stimulate the actual offshore wind development. Unfortunately, we're going into recess next month, but there's going to be a public comment period to the CPUC draft report. I already know one definite recommendation I would love to see AVA and other CCAs have, which is ask for 10 gigawatts for the 2035, by 2035 for that procurement to instigate some of this development, and not having seen their draft report yet, recommendations yet, but I don't know if there's a way to have a subcommit. I mean, we're going into recess. I don't know if there's any way to get the agency to review and make comments before the public comment period ends. So Adrian, I can send you a package with all the details, and then maybe we can figure out if there's a way to have the necessary dialogue and possibly send in a letter. I know that a lot of activists, a large group of activists active in this space just sent a letter directly to the governor outside of the public comment period. So even if we miss the public comment period, maybe we could do that as opposed with the CPC. But anyway, I can send you a bunch of the details that you can share, and maybe I can talk with the chair about if there is a way we can figure out bureaucratically to try to move this within the window of possible official comment.
So we have a legislative person on point that could assist with that, regardless of period or not. I think we have somebody on staff that
Yeah.
you can bring that forth to Adrian, and they can just flip it over to that person and see how they can address it and move it forward, and they can circle back with you. And then maybe by the time we come back, there's at least some traction.
Okay.
We can address it. So at least there's some comment or dialogue that could be occurring while we're in recess in August. So that maybe the staff on AVA can address what you're bringing forth through the clerk, and then he's the conduit, and just copy me, and we can move it along and see what we have by the time we come back.
Okay, thank you. That will
Of
do.
course.
Right on.
Thank you. Anytime. Yes, member Lutz.
I'd like to ask for an item on historical costs of electricity, including over the period that AVA, East Bay Community Energy, and then AVA has been in existence, including not just AVA's generation costs, but also PG&E's costs, because customers don't really know what AVA's cost, what they're paying, how much goes to AVA, how much goes to PG&E, and I would like to see a discussion of that, or maybe even make a presentation on how that's changed and what AVA can do to reduce the total electricity bill for our customers, not just the generation portion of it. Which gets back to Member Weiner's idea of pushing legislation and regulation to reduce the parts that AVA can't reduce.
And I'm just trying to make sure I heard it correctly there. You're concerned about historically the changes that occurred, and what else can we do to reduce cost of energy? Something you want to discuss further and market it better?
Yeah, right.
So I think that's more of you use the word journey, marketing journey, see how we've gone, what the impact, and that would have to be to our storytelling and just showing the value of AVA in the community. I don't know if that would be something that would make sense, but we would have to partner with the marketing team to really present that image. And I think we have to work with our board members to then encourage that journey of information to our clients or our customers. So I think we have to work with some of the board members to really get that forward, and they can bring that information over. But I think Adrian can log it, so that way you can share with the chair. Who's our chair now? Belch.
The concern I have is electricity prices are going up dramatically. And it's not just AVA's prices.
No.
It's the rest of the bill too. And I don't know that I'd like to highlight that it's not just AVA's part of the total part of the bill.
I think there's a value add presentation there that marketing emphasized the value of AVA in the community and what we're doing to combat the increased cost of energy. And we could be doing more too with the local Clean Energy Alliance brings forth public comment on a regular basis. I think it's important to identify how we'll do better always. I think there's that story and that journey to do that. A little shout out there if you don't mind. All right, we'll keep working. Remember, we'll work together to address the story that we can tell. Adrian. Member Pete Stevenson.
Excellent, thank you. So this is somewhat related to the previous speaker's point, but also some questions I had with the consideration with price effects of adding Fremont. Specifically, I mean, there are 3 utilities in some radius around us. You know, we have Silicon Valley Power, Alameda Municipal Power, and SMUD, and their costs are between like 50 and 60% less than AVA and PG&E, and that's for like the total bundled rates, not just generation. And you know, all 3 of them offer 100% clean, meaning carbon-free power. For less than half the cost. And so all this discussion about, costs are increasing, well, they clearly are making it work at half the price. And if we could follow in their footsteps, figure out what they're doing and do the same, I mean, we can cut customer electric cost across the board by 50%. I mean, that's a huge benefit, not only for residential customers, low income or not, but also commercial and industrial. And it makes a lot of things like electrification much more economically appealing to the typical customer. So it's clearly possible to bring those costs down while providing clean power, since those 3 utilities do it. And since we're already paying among the highest power costs in the country, my ask is I'd really like to see some numbers and some analysis from AVA saying, what are they doing? What can we do to be like them, to help people out? Because, everything else we're doing here is kind of nibbling around the edges, but this is like 100% clean power at half the cost. I think we really need to look into that.
I concur.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Member Stevenson. I think it's important to bring that comment forward to the board, and if you are able to speak to it on Wednesday, that would be great. And if not, collaborate with Adrian to bring that concern over to Howard. I mean, or unless somebody else wants to address costs, procurement, and energy. I don't have the magic formula how that gets done, but if we compare apples to apples, we can identify what are the gaps and then do the analysis to get there.
Sure. I'd be happy to, depending on the time, I'd be happy to talk with them. I don't know what that process is like, so I'm not sure who I should talk to understand what that entails. But I'd be happy to talk with them.
Sure. If you could email me at cob@avaenergy.org, we can set up a time to talk.
That's COB?
Yes, at avaenergy.org.
Got it.
All
right. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, member?
There was a couple of meetings ago, I had asked about bidirectional charging. And if there's like a legislative person who could be tracking that in Sacramento, and I was wondering if anything has happened to that or who I would talk to. Sorry.
It goes to Adrian, right? The tracking. So I think the question is, I remember brought up information about my bidirectional charging. Is there someone she could speak to about that, tracking that information in Sacramento? So I think maybe talking to the same legislative person, which I forget their name.
Sure.
I think maybe.
I can comment on it.
You can go for it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so our policy team is tracking SB 59, which is brought in by Senator Skinner, and that's directly focused on bidirectional charging. I think I don't know if our policy team has put out a statement on that yet, but it's something we are tracking. And if a statement hasn't been put out on it yet, we will soon.
For the I heard that PG&E was actually had a test, they were testing it with like 200 people or something.
Yeah, there are a few tests around the state that are in lab tests on bidirectional charging.
And for me, just to understand that, are we talking about the trucks that can use your power or something else? Just to understand when you say bidirectional
Yeah,
charge, or your batteries, or
Yeah, you can use your car to charge your house and vice versa.
can you do that now in some vehicles? I've seen commercials.
They say it, but it's a different, it's like you can charge your computer in your truck. It's not that you can charge your house, if I have that correct.
Yeah.
I'm just asking for clarification.
Sure, yeah. So there are some vehicles right now that do support bidirectional charging, like the F-150 Lightning. But most automakers have not turned on the capabilities. And the charging equipment doesn't allow for bidirectional, it only allows for unidirectional. And so, yeah, I think, the legislation on the table right now is SB 59. So for those that are interested and want to support or get into the sort of comment period on that, I'd recommend looking at that bill.
Adrian, I think I sent you that article that showed all the different trucks and stuff didn't I send that to Scented folks? There was an article, it was a.
Yeah, I think you did. I need to find it.
You may want to look at that
Yes,
or share it. Didn't say as much as you did.
So yeah, so maybe you can share that article, that'd be great.
Sure.
So we can be more
Yeah.
informed, so next time SB 59 comes forward for a recommendation position, then maybe we can take a position on it. We will stop there because we go too far from one item to another, and then we get in trouble. All right, any other items? Yes, Member Landry.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things here. Please, I realize the time is getting late. I would be, I know that Member Lutz at the last meeting talked about having additional trainings. But I would be, and I would be interested in a member of the public tonight, Mr. Pittman, brought up the announcement by PG&E that they would be willing to do some community presentations. I would be interested in that, but I would also like to have balance in that and hear from a community group also, such as Mothers for Peace, who live near the Diablo Valley nuclear plant, because that is coming up for discussion. And so I would like to see a balanced overview of that, if that's possible. And I'd also, Local Clean Energy also offered to give a training on resilience hubs. And I would like to see us do that also, perhaps on a training day that was suggested, or, during our meeting here. And lastly, I would like to see a debt relief program study to understand what we have done in the past regarding customer debt relief, and possibly looking at, instituting another one in the immediate future, the near future.
Thank you. So Adrian will add that to the log, talking about that relief program and see what we've done in the past, specifically 2021 COVID assistance. Okay, and I heard you say the Resilient Hubs, you're looking at study session with the Local Clean Energy Alliance.
Yes.
And the first one talked about a balanced overview about Diablo Canyon, and there's an article about moms. Is that what you said earlier?
There's another community group called Mothers for Peace that are advocating probably against nuclear energy. I want to hear both sides of the issue, just not PG&E side. I want a balance.
And if you have a contact for the individuals or the organization or article, I think it'd be good to forward that over to
Yeah.
our clerk so that we can do that in the information through a presentation that maybe staff does. And they can review that and see how that adds color
I'll
to the
forward that.
conversation. Thank you. I have nothing else. Seeing nothing else, I don't want to add to the agenda. And do we have a meeting next month? Adrian?
No.
We are. Good. So we'll be coming back, convening again September 16th at 6 p.m. at same place, same location. Have a good rest of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. You're on our state.
Awesome. So, very cool.
And just wanted to have great with both of you guys, just to follow up our conversation. Yeah. You guys are both here. You know, so. I was exhausted, that I just didn't have. Like, with the board, you know, agenda was. Exactly what you do. So, and it actually does. I didn't know if you just wanted me to forward this as public record or materials. Or something else now that you have, you know, that follows up on comments you just said today.
Yeah, well, so that's